take the weight on my shoulders. As I feel the sky come down on me, and I can't hold it much longer. Gonna let go so I can be free. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Foul Territories Draft Takeover is happening live from Seattle. Scotty Braun, AJ Brzezinski, Erik Kratz, JJ Cooper from Baseball America, and thanks for joining us and joining
Glad
the
to
party
be here.
here. What do you think of the draft so far? Let's get right into it because we have a number of guests joining us, so I want to get your quick take.
The thing that stands out to me is we didn't know if anyone would try to get cute in the top 5 picks. There was a clear top 5. There was 5 guys you say, okay, it's those 5 and then the next group. Those top 5 went in the top 5. You could argue Schemes versus Cruz at 1, but the Pirates got the best arm, maybe the best player in the draft. You really can't argue it at 2. If it's Schemes is off the board, the Nationals sat there and said, we'll take the next best, or maybe the best. And then after you get past that, you're still talking about Langford, you're talking about Clark, you're talking about Walker Jenkins. These were the top 5 guys in the class. They cleared out. And then we've had a few picks since then, and all of those have kind of generally followed expected form as well. It hasn't been a very surprising draft yet.
What about Noah Chanel?
No, he's good.
Yeah.
That's a legit.
The
That's a
Angels
legit
pick.
guy who fits in this. That is probably a bargain pick, but he also is arguably the most productive bat in the class from the college class. Now, you're not getting much defense. You're not getting the other parts. But if you look at numbers, Dylan Cruz is probably not as good, not as productive this year as Sean was.
He had like 400, did it? 420, something
Yeah,
like that?
among batting leaders,
Florida-
among on base, slugging, power.
Whack. All right.
Anything else surprise you?
Langford
Top 5?
didn't go 3. I thought Langford would go higher. I was surprised the Pirates actually made the right pick.
You were surprised?
I was
Why, because they're the
surprised
Pirates?
because I felt like they would go with, and I don't think you could go wrong with the top 3 guys with Langford and Schemes and Cruz. I just felt like they were going to take the guy that was going to take the least amount of money, and then you would be like, oh, that's so Pirates of them. But they didn't. Seriously, like in a year and a half, I think Schemes can do something. Nobody knows what anybody's going to do.
A year and a half? Or
He could be 4, but I'm
A
saying
year.
Really solidify himself.
yeah.
I don't think the Pirates need him this year, and why would they start any kind of keep anything I don't think it's as important. Like if they were in a playoff hunt, if the Brewers picked him up right now, yes, right to the big leagues in whatever it is they need, like a month or.
I'm talking about next year, though. July, August. If the Pirates are suddenly good, because they are tracking that way, this is a guy who could potentially go up there. In our chat before we started, people are like, Schemes 2025. I'm like, 2024.
Yeah, 2024 for sure.
Why
What
can't
about
he start?
next year in April?
Why can't he start?
Yeah.
Mike Leake
Next
did.
year.
I can't tell you that Mike Leake is better than Paul Schemes.
Mike
Maybe
Leake
more
getting those hard.
Maybe more
I know
strikes.
I don't know. I mean, Schemes'
More
strikeout
strikes.
to walk ratio.
As far as
isn't-
he could hit corners, except for when he hit my barrel and I hit homers off him.
Yeah.
But
Who would you rather have, Mike Leake going amp, or Paul Skeens going 102?
Well, hold that thought, because our first guest is ready to go, and then we'll get back to it. We have time. Don't worry. Melissa Lockhart is joining us right now on the Oakland A's pick. She is a great writer for The Athletic, senior editor, staff writer, following this draft closely with what Oakland's been doing. And Melissa, we appreciate the time. Jacob Wilson is the pick. These guys all reacted to it going, as in Jack Wilson's kid? Yes, Jack Wilson's kid. How are you, and what do you think of what Oakland just did? Uh-oh. We don't hear Melissa yet. All right. Melissa, sorry about that. We'll get back to it. All right, let's keep it in-house, though. and get back to what we were talking about. All right, first of all, with Oakland, though, did you guys not react that way? You were like, Jacob Wilson.
No, I knew who it was.
He
Kratz
knew.
is the one that was like, wait, what?
I looked up. I did all my JJ Cooper prep and everything. I never saw that Jacob Wilson was. I even almost texted the old Grand Canyon coach. I'm like, I'll leave him alone. I won't text him. No
Why?
idea.
Because the old Grand Canyon coach is too busy for Erik Kratz?
Yeah.
Hey, leave me alone after the draft, all right?
Yeah,
I got Wilson
he's
to
got
deal
his
with.
own. He's not even there. He doesn't coach there anymore, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, missed it. Totally missed
You
it.
were too busy grinding tape.
Okay, that's fair.
You
That's
know,
fair. I appreciate that.
you were diving into the swings,
I
pitch
was
movement,
Numbers,
defense, numbers.
spin
Exactly.
rates off the bat.
spin rate, and launch angles.
You didn't focus on the bios, the makeup. You
I
wanted to
should
get the
have learned more
the
about the
details.
person than the numbers.
I'll take makeup over numbers on some guys. A lot
At
of
some
guys.
point.
Well, you need both.
Yeah, but I'll take makeup. I'll take a dude that can get you a hit over a dude that can hit it hard, less frequently, or more frequently. I'll take the dude.
Give me examples.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll take Luis Arise.
Okay.
Oh wow! You're pandering to the host.
Over what?
Over
Over
pretty much
Frenchie
anybody else in the
Cordero?
Major Leagues.
Frenchie Cordero?
You got to go. You got to go
Because-
comp.
Would you take
Stanton?
Okay. Do you want?
Stanton?
Yeah, but Stanton's career OPS is way higher than Arise's.
If it's the bottom of the ninth,
Oh well, of course. You only
Closers
play
on the
bottom of
mound.
the ninth one time during a game.
that's when you win the game.
You're going to lose. You're going to lose more often with Arise than you are with Spencer Steer. I'd take Spencer Steer, Matt McClain over Arise. Because you got to do apples to apples.
It depends how you value the hit tool as well. I
Yeah.
mean, that's
Depends on what you need.
I'll take Ellie De La Cruz.
well, take me through the top five, right? Because it felt like there was somewhat of a distinct top five. How did you differentiate? Because, and I always tell people when they go, "Oh, who do you think's going one?" I'm like, "Who would I take in the first five, or who do I think the teams are going to take?" There was a big difference there, and the one thing I did want to get into is, Kyle Glazer, who works for BA, put out a tweet maybe 4 or 5 hours before the draft saying the Pirates were talking to a number of different picks to see who would go under slot. That pisses me off. That's not how I think an MLB draft should operate, even though I understand that there's pool money, they want to use it elsewhere. I'm like, you guys have been building forever. Take the best freaking player.
But, okay, let's say that if you're the Pirates and you think that Cruz and Skeens, you have them on the same level, take $1.5 million less than the other. Well, then you factor it in. To me, you don't say we're going to clearly take someone much significantly worse just to save money. If you have a Bryce Harper at the top of the class, you just give them the money. If you have an Adley Rutschman at the top of the class, you just give them the money. If you have, to me this year, if you say you're going between Cruz and Skeens, or maybe if you're going between Cruz, Skeens, and Langford, if you really like Langford, then you can say we're shopping to see the deal. But only among guys that you have on the same level, not to say we're going to do it and we'll take the guy who's 5th, 6th, 7th on our list because we'll be able to get the guy who's 20th or 25th on our list as well.
But as Kratz said, that would be the Pittsburgh Pirate thing to do.
It really,
Take the guy that's like 10th. You can save like $3 million.
for
You
sure.
still have to spend it. I do want to differentiate here. It's not like if they save a few $1 million, the owner can put it in his pocket like he does during the regular season with his payroll. This is different. This is like JJ said, you're manipulating money so that you can use it on other picks. The Astros did this a few times, right? Didn't the Astros do this with Correa and was it McCullers the same
Right.
year?
Correa Buxton's a perfect example. A lot of people had Byron Buxton as the number one player in that class. The Astros thought that Buxton and Correa were equal. And they basically went to both camps and said, here's how much we're willing to pay, which, by the way, give the Astros credit on this. This was the first year of it. Now we're all used to it. At the time, it was a novel strategy. And they said, okay, Byron, okay, Carlos, whichever one of you is willing to take this deal, we're going to draft you. Correa took the deal. Buxton did. Worked out for Buxton, too. He got paid, went to the majors. But by doing that, it allowed them to spread money longer, and they got Lance McCullers Jr. out of it, if I remember correctly.
Yep. The Astros, listen, for as much heat as the Astros take, they were ahead of their time in a lot of stuff. I mean, including cheating, but listen, I mean, the draft, spin rates, TrackMan, they were the first team. Blast, the thing Ellie De La Cruz had on his bat, they started that. I mean, they were ahead of the game in all this stuff, including banging a trash can. But
well, that's not ahead of the game.
But what I'm saying is they knew things. And listen, Lunau gets his fair share of shit, but he also did some things that were like, okay, now everyone does it. It's kind of like Moneyball back in the day when now every team has analytics teams.
Right. Well, it's an info arms race that was going on for a long time in the sport, which we could get into for a long time separately. Not the best thing for the sport for a variety of reasons.
But the draft thing they did was smart because they got two players that they probably wouldn't have been able to get if they didn't get Correa signed under slot.
Not just that year. A couple of years later, they get a bonus pick because they didn't sign Aiken. What do? They spread their money. They got Bregman and Kyle Tucker.
Because Aiken had the
he had the weird
thing.
UCL that was really small.
Abnormal.
And then he ended up
Abnormal.
And then he ended up getting drafted the next year, pitched a little bit, got hurt.
And unfortunately was pretty much done almost as where his pro career started.
Again, Lunau.
We actually had one of our guys was at his only appearance in JUCO, or I guess at IMG, not JUCO, IMG, at postgraduate. And he left after, in the first inning. And I'll give Josh Norris, our staff, credit. They were obviously hush, 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 hush. He found the umpire. And he found the umpire and he said, so what happened? And the umpire said, he said his elbow hurt. And it's like, good thinking, Josh. So he got the scoop on what happened with Aiken when they were being hush, hush about it. Because the umpire had to come to the mound and find out what was going on.
Let's move on to another topic while we have a moment related to the beginning of the draft. So this was the first year we had the draft lottery. So the first 6 picks were not just Tank City in order. That helped some teams like Pittsburgh, hurt other teams like Oakland. Where do you think we are with that right now? Like, do you like it? Do we need to go further? Because after that first 6, then it's back to the win percentage order.
It also really helped Minnesota. Minnesota should have picked way later, and they got the 5th pick in a 5-player draft at the top. So Walker Jenkins is a draft lottery bonus for them, and not having any of the top 5 on the board is a nightmare in some ways for the A's. The one, though, that I was in the room when they did the ping pong balls as the media representative.
You were in the room?
Yeah.
Okay. And the ping pong balls were real?
They are real. They are the same as we see in the NBA.
What?
There was no frozen envelope.
He's a good ping pong player.
But how it worked for the number 1 pick, when it came to the last ping pong ball, the Boston Red Sox had the highest odds of having the number 1 pick. And can you imagine what it would have been like if in the first MLB draft lottery of all time, the Red Sox, who, by the way, are not picking, they haven't picked yet, and then they're still not picking for a little while.
Yeah.
But
They're picking right now.
Okay, they're picking around. Sorry. But if they had gotten the number 1 pick, it would have been a complete outcry that clearly MLB has utterly rigged this thing.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. They're just trying to help the big market teams. But it was one ping pong bounce away.
Yeah, but I hate this. Well, I actually like the lottery because I hate teams tanking. Like, you look at other sports, NBA specifically, and they try to lose to get the higher draft. Like, this is stupid.
I think the other part that we're going to really notice down the road is you can only be in the lottery for a few years before you get kicked out of it. If you're terrible for a long time, you can't just keep rolling up top 5 picks.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
What is it, 3 years?
3 years, February.
Yeah,
But I like it. I want incentives for teams to be good. Forget just kicking them out. It should be even. I don't know.
My version of it was that I wrote probably 6 years ago now. Is there should be a tank tax where you get bonuses for having a winning record, especially if you're a revenue sharing team, and you get penalties for being under 70 wins 3 years in a row. If you're that bad, there should be penalties to it.
Yep.
I agree. There's tons of penalties for teams that are trying and that are spending. Mets and Dodgers both got picks pushed back. We'll get to that. Let's try a guest here. David Seifert, Director of Scouting for Prep Baseball Report and D1 Baseball. We'll see. Working with some Wi-Fi here. David, can you hear us? How you doing?
I can hear you. I'm doing good.
All right. We got you. Let's go, baby. David, give us your take on what you've seen so far in the first round of the draft. David? Trying one more time. David, we had him.
It was so close.
It was so close.
So close.
We heard him. He
I got
looks
so
great.
excited for a second.
He's
You
dialed
blew
in.
it.
And then it went away.
Stand
I'm
by.
going to do Vito Cook, but for a second there, we could tell him we could hear him.
What do you think he was going to say, JJ?
There's no surprises. It's a 5-person draft. And the top 5 guys all went in the top 5.
I think he was going to talk about the fact that we are seeing a run on college middle infielders now. We're in the middle of the first round now. We've seen Tommy Troy. We've seen Matt Shaw. Now we see Kyle Teal, I think. AJ, help me out here. Okay, 2 middle infielders, but college bats, I should say. Kyle
So
Teal,
in about
obviously not.
3 minutes, we're all going to have to stop because the White Sox are picking. And then we're going to just analyze the White
Well,
Sox.
no, we're not going to stop.
Ugh.
You can stop talking. We'll give you 3 minutes off. You can
No, we're
focus
all-
on your boys,
We're
and we
all
will
gonna
handle
stop.
things.
Figure out who they're going to ruin their career.
Yeah, we're not doing a moment of silence for the White Sox.
The White Sox don't.
We've done that plenty this year.
They don't exactly have the best track record of draft picks.
Oh, no?
We got that coming up.
How about winning?
Not-
How about trying?
They
How
try.
about spending money?
They spend.
The White Sox are the team that probably for their fans benefited most from the arrival in 2012 of the bonus pools, because before that you could spend whatever you want or you could stay right on slot, and the White Sox were a slot team, and then now
Very
they
slotty.
do spin to the bonus pools. So it actually, I think, upped what they spent, what they were willing to do. Hadn't always worked out, but they've gone after guys.
I saw a thing. The last 20 drafts, there's been like 2 guys that have been impact. Sale,
I mean, that's pretty good.
2 guys in 20 years.
Sale's pretty good. To get Sale where they did was the steal of that draft.
But that's
Yeah.
a success in the last 20 years?
So here's the
Or
crazy
just
thing.
from that
We can dive into this now. Like when we talk about the Braves, right? The Braves do a great job drafting, right? How many MLB hitters do you think that they have drafted and signed? And I don't mean they have to play for them, for anybody from 2012 to present.
Austin
Braves?
Riley.
Huh?
Austin Riley's one.
One, it's a really good one. Michael Harris is a really good one too.
Michael Harris.
Drew Waters?
He's made the majors, so that's 3.
The rest of the guys are trades or international guys.
8. They've had 8 hitters in the entirety. Now they've been really good, those 8, but that's it. Like I think one thing that we get, it's easy to overlook because it takes so long to get there, but there are teams. The Washington Nationals, this is part of this draft study I just did, and I want to shout out to Pramana, which their shift tool allows us to do this stuff, to pull it out. But the Nationals have drafted and signed 37 big league homers since 2012.
That's it?
That's it. The A's drafted and signed 453 home runs
Holy shit.
in the 2012 draft. Olsen, Chapman, Addison Russell,
Yep.
Max Muncy.
Problem is they're all on different teams.
Exactly. I'm saying that they drafted. and signed-
No one talk.
Okay, well, with that, Adrian's
We're
going to
out.
watch the pick. We're going to try to bring in
Commissioner.
David again.
There's
David
the commissioner.
Seifert.
David, wait.
Do
You
you
gotta
have
wait
us,
for the White
David?
Sox.
Don't let him bully you.
The White
Jacob
Sox ruined
Gonzalez.
their season by picking Jacob Gonzalez.
Boom.
I knew
Okay,
it.
we'll talk about it
I
later.
knew
He's
it.
pretty
We'll
good.
talk about it later, AJ.
Yeah.
David, there's a lot going on here. David, you got us, bud?
I got you now. Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, so let's backtrack. Take us through, first off, any surprises you've seen, and what did you think was going to happen in the first 5 picks?
I think the first 5 went off just like everybody predicted, maybe just in a different order than different people predicted. For me, the biggest surprise right now is how tall Shanuel went. He's a great hitter, but he's limited to a corner, and the Angels picked 11 overall. But they do like the Matt Tices of the world. They do like the Crones of the world, so that pick kind of fits them. And then on the flip side, I did
Tell me,
realize
Lawson.
Kyle Teal went pretty low. I didn't. I thought he would go a little higher than where he went, but Boston got a great one.
Who's been
Kyle
your
Teal. Yeah, he was saying Kyle Teal when they thought he was going to go earlier.
Yeah.
Anytime you get a catcher, even
Well,
a bad catcher.
But I was surprised the high school catcher went above the
too.
college catcher, because the college catcher's seen velo. He's seen velo hitting. So I thought Teal would go ahead of the high school guy.
I did too. I agree.
So why?
Why did he?
Yeah.
I have no idea why Teal fell. I'm more like focused on the college crop, and Teal for me was the top. He was the 6th guy I would have taken behind the big 5. Teal was my next pick. I mean, there's nothing he can't do. He can hit. He can hit for power. He has a near 70 arm. He improved his receiving. He's still not a polished receiver, but who is coming out of the amateur ranks? The guy does it all for me. And for Blake Mitchell to go ahead of him, maybe they got a better deal with Mitchell. The Royals maybe struck a better deal, freed up some pool money, and they can pick higher ceiling guys later. I'm not sure that as you guys know, the Major League Baseball draft, it's so different than any other draft because of the bonus pools and slots, and the agents are super involved because there's flexibility. There's not hard slots. So it's crazy how it works, but there's could be any reason really.
I'm not trying to suck up to AJ here, but what did you think about Jacob Gonzalez going to the White Sox?
That's about where I thought he'd go. I mean, that's a great pick for the White Sox. Gonzalez coming into the year was probably a top 10 overall pick. He obviously slid 8 spots from there, but
Top 10, baby.
College producer, shortstop. I think he can stay there. The swing isn't the prettiest. It's unorthodox for sure, but he produces. He's got some power. That's a really good pick, picking 18th overall for the White Sox. Tip of the cap to Mike Shirley.
Yeah.
He's so happy. You made his day, David.
Listen, at the end of the day, it's the White Sox. And they don't have we were talking about this. They don't have I know Mike Shirley's good, great dude, but they don't have the best history.
with developing players? I don't agree with that.
I'm going to push back on this. I think in the last couple of years, the White Sox have done a pretty impressive job of kind of improving how they, especially at the top of the draft. You look at Colson Montgomery, who they got a couple of years ago. Elite, been hurt this year a lot.
He can't
top
play.
of the prospect. But Noah Schultz, big tall. He's a guy who we're getting ready to do our top 100 update. I promise you what you're going to see Noah Schultz rocket up that. He's been one of the most impressive in very short stints, but one of the most impressive arms in the low minors this year. The comparisons we get for him are very lofty.
So I want to know who's the best player left.
Ask David. He's right there.
David, who we got?
It's got to be
On
Braden
my
Taylor,
board-
right?
For me, I'm in love with Yo-Yo Morales, third baseman from Miami. I would have picked him a long time ago. I would have picked him probably right around Teal, like 7th or 8th overall. So my next best guy is Yo-Yo Morales from Miami. My best pitcher is Waldrop from Florida.
So you're a heavy college guy.
Yeah, that's kind of my specialty, I guess. That's my sweet spot.
Does Waldrop throw enough strikes? We saw in the championship, right? He couldn't throw strikes. Sproat and him and Caglione.
He's a Florida fan too, by the way, so
Clearly.
if you were wondering.
But the three of them, because LSU waited them out, were out so early it cost Florida. So the thing I worry about with Waldrop is, can he throw enough strikes?
Yeah, I think he can. I mean, let's face it, he throws 5 pitches. Just cut it down to 3 and work on the 3. I mean, that's the first thing I would do is just limit the amount of different pitches he's throwing. So I think with that, you're going to develop better control. And it's not like he's wild. It's not like he's Mitch Williams out there. He's not throwing everywhere. So I think he can develop enough control to be a starter. And he's got nasty stuff to go with it. But he should go anytime now. He's the next, like I said, he's the next college pitcher on my board.
Hey, what are your thoughts on Enrique Bradfield and how you think he'll project as a big leaguer. I know it's a very unique profile. Obviously, I'm always looking for speed, but it's got to be able to convert into the big leagues. I know he didn't hit for a great average this year. Last year, he was 46 for 46 on stolen bags. You got to get on. He plays an elite center field, which I think still is a pretty big void in the big leagues to have exciting, flashy center fielders that can play and stay on the field. But where do you think he'll go, and how do you think he'll project in the bigs?
He's probably going to go here with the next 5 picks. I would guess, as far as I have him projected. I'm not sure that's a high average swing. It's a really stiff swing. There's not a lot of flexibility in the barrel. But I think he's going to be like a Willie McGee type, that type of guy. Hit. He's kind of an 80s player, I guess. He's the 80 defender. He's the 80 runner. He's got a 40, 45 arm. There's not a lot of power in there, but he'll shoot some doubles. He'll speed some triple and speed some doubles that most guys won't, be able to do. I think he's an everyday guy. I just don't think he has enough offensively that he's going to be an impact everyday guy.
I agree with you, David. I'm a little worried about the bat, how much he's going to produce hitting for average. Obviously, speed, defense is right there. I do think it's a great time to ask that question, though. I would be surprised if he's still on the board a couple of picks from now.
Okay. You got a team in mind?
Let's see if Baltimore takes him.
Yeah?
Let's just see.
David, does he compare to like a Billy Hamilton? Because Billy Hamilton could fly, couldn't throw, couldn't get on first.
That's a good one, too. I mean, Bradfield has a little bit more power than Billy Hamilton, but that's another good one, yeah.
Billy Hamilton's had a nice run, but he never could steal first.
You're looking more for Kenny Lofton if you can.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I do think Bradfield's a better hitter than Hamilton. Hamilton, even in the lower minors, had times where he'd really struggle to hit. I think Bradfield's, what he's done at Vanderbilt, what he's done in the SEC, I don't want to make it sound like Chandler Simpson, who didn't have the defensive chops that Bradfield does, but thank you, adjust me as I keep going.
You're good.
Chandler Simpson led D1 in batting last year, and he was still on the board for a good while longer. He did some defensive questions, but also was a pure burner. So, again, Bradfield's a better hitter than that, but I think it's an example of how Bradfield, I don't think this year had the year where you go, okay, I'm 100% confident in the bat.
Hey, David, I've got one more for you. The draft as a whole, do you think we're doing the best job as a sport of promoting it? College baseball continues to rise in popularity. I think, of course, you're not going to have most of these players make an impact for a while. That hurts, right? College football and college basketball are still grabbing more eyeballs, but college baseball is picking up the pace. And then lastly, for me, I was complaining about this earlier, even the fact that we have to deal with reports that the Pirates are maybe shopping around to try and find a guy that's going to take money under slot. I get what teams at the top of the draft are trying to do there to manipulate money to get guys that they could sign later on in the draft. I just don't think that sells the product well. I wish there was a different system in place than the way that works, because if I'm watching and I'm maybe a more casual fan, I want the top guys to be taken in the top 5 picks. I don't give a shit about the money manipulation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I wish a Major League Baseball draft was like the NFL or the NHL and every other major sport. I don't think the agents will ever let it be that way, because they kind of lose some of their power, if you will. There will never be hard slots. So, I mean, it is what is it. It's hard to manage. And I was listening to you guys earlier, and I don't know who was being kind of critical of the Pirates. Just take the best guy. I forget who said that. I thought the best guy was Skeens, but everyone has their own opinion. Everyone watches the game in a different way. But I do agree with what he said. Take the best guy, but sometimes it's not possible. I worked for the Phillies for a number of years, and we're in the draft room, and 2016 was not a good draft. We are still sitting there saying take the best guy, but if we took Moniak freed up $2 million for us to use other picks, and it's just basically a shell game. And sometimes you make the right call and sometimes you don't. But I do wish it was like the NBA, NFL, and those other leagues. And then your first question is, yes, I do. I think the NCAA, I think D1baseball.com, who I also work for. I think they do a tremendous job promoting the college baseball game, promoting the draft, along with Major League Baseball, which has obviously really stepped up all of its efforts and made it much more public in the last decade.
David, we really appreciate the time. It was great to chat draft with you. Thanks for hanging with us as we fight a little Wi-Fi here. You look great. Connection clean as hell. So enjoy the rest of the draft. We'll talk again down the line.
Sure will. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you. And you can follow all of his coverage, like he mentioned, where he's working right now. D1 baseball coverage, does a great job. What? Did he nail it? Oh, he nailed it.
This dude's got some insight.
Come on.
JJ. How did you know they were going to
Cooper's
take
not
him?
me. It's the staff.
Did you hear how he said it too? He goes, thinking the Orioles.
Yeah.
Did you know that
Yes.
Enrique Bradfield was going to go to the Orioles
Doesn't.
like in the
Our
last 10
staff-
minutes?
Our staff had a very strong inclination.
But when you say strong inclination, are you talking about just recently in your text right now,
Yeah, I'm
or
checking
like
Slack.
3 hours ago?
I mean, there are guys you hear kind of connected, but then as you get closer, you get stronger indications.
okay.
I mean,
Well,
that was
great job.
That was like perfect time. Perfect.
Well, that's why I brought up.
Scott-
Out of all
Scott
people,
knew.
I bring up Enrique Bradfield. I'm listening to a BA pod actually last night. I was listening to Collazo and Who Does It Together.
Carlos and
And Ben
Ben.
Badley.
So did you get through all 2.5 hours?
I did not. I did not.
I haven't
lots to
yet
do
either.
here, but
He
you
was
didn't
only
get
delayed.
through. I probably will listen to the rest at some point, but I did not get through the 2.5 of the last show they did.
My favorite story of that is they started recording it, and I think they're an hour and 10 minute in, and they've gone through 8 picks. And at that point, Carlos said, "Bid, we've got to speed this up." I mean, we don't have no one's going to listen to a 7-hour pod.
So,
Or
They
split it up.
right
That's
under.
my thing. That's what we do. Split it
here's my
up.
thing. When we just had everyone, we had them on.
David,
Simon, David.
Yeah.
I was looking at JJ about
David
to call
Seifert.
something else.
There's a lot of names tonight. Good luck.
Yes. So we had David. And Scott asked him about the draft. The problem is these high school kids, nobody knows. The internet has helped, right? Baseball America helps. But the casual baseball fan doesn't know who the hell Noble Meyer is,
Well-
right? They don't know who, even Max Clark. Now, if you're in baseball, you know who these guys are,
Or if you have Instagram.
or Instagram. True. But not if you're not following baseball accounts.
Right.
So you look at college basketball, you look at college football, people watch those. So when the NFL, NBA have their draft, they're like, oh, I know that guy from Duke, and he went 3rd overall to the Pistons. Or in football, you're like, the Giants have the first pick, and they took blah, blah, blah.
The NBA has that problem now, though, too.
With the foreign guys.
It's not just foreign. It's like, so we had, at the top of the NBA draft this year, we had a once-in-a-generation type talent. Okay, I don't care if he's playing in France. I don't care if he's playing on the moon. Everyone would know about him,
Yep.
right? When was the next guy who was like a college star? Pick 6, 7, 8? I'm not a big NBA draft follower, but most of the next guys all came from either developmental league or the alternate developmental league. And I think, though, the baseball's always going to have a hurdle. Yeah, okay, Zach Neto. Zach Neto was being drafted at this time last year, and he is a key part of the Angels' big league team, not just now, but for the last couple of months.
Mhm.
But that's always going to be the exception in baseball. And the difference is that if I'm watching the NFL draft and my team takes a first-round pick, I'm excited about how that's going to help my team the next game they play. And that's just never going to be the MLB draft. It doesn't matter. I mean, Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz are about as famous as a college player can be. I don't know.
They're no Livy Dunn at LSU.
Okay, they're not. Yeah, they're not as famous as her, but they're about as famous. They don't have nearly the. I don't think Paul Skeens' followers. If you multiplied them by,
I don't think Paul
billion.
Skeens is on TikTok, although his mustache could dominate TikTok. But
True.
and he means college baseball player. Two of the most well-known college baseball players in a long time because of what they did in big moments, and then their draft status. And you add all of that up, right? There's been college baseball stars where you're like, oh, he's really good in college, but he's more like a 2nd or 3rd round guy, right? Like he's not as projectable. This was the total package just now. And it takes time to build towards this. The other thing I think JJ is when fans are able to see players, at least some, like you're saying with Neto, get to the big leagues, you at least are able to fill a little bit of a void of, I just talked about him in the draft, now he's impacting my ball club. With teams getting more aggressive on calling up prospects at a younger age, which I've always been a fan of, that's going to help the draft as well. Because obviously, like you said, yeah, you draft a high schooler pretty much anywhere, it's going to take a while. But Jackson Holiday, is that who you
Double
want me
A.
to- is in Double A as of right now. He was the number 1 overall pick last year, picked at, what was he, no older than 18 or 17? How old is he right now? Is he 18 or 19?
Still 19 now.
19 now? He's in Double A. Jackson Holiday, if he stays on this course, is in the big leagues next year.
Yeah.
Right? At 20.
Yeah.
So you see him number 1, it gets all the attention, and boom, there he is. More of that is going to help, and I think teams are more aggressive in general. Let's not let a guy waste away in the minors. We have better coaching potentially in the major leagues. And also, if we let a guy crush it in the minors for too long, you're kind of punishing yourself, because we'll get to it later, but Julio Rodriguez earned the Mariners a very, very high pick and more money to spend in the draft for them being aggressive to call him up, let alone what he did for the team last year.
Well, I'll ask you guys, because coming up, you see some guys that may take, a grind to get to the big leagues. But there's other guys who maybe that, teams are almost reluctant to move them as fast as they should. Did either of you guys play, if anyone, you're like, I think back on it, and they probably were a little slow with that guy? Or were they a little slow with you guys?
Hold it. I just want to try a guess. Keep that in the back of your head. That's a tease, okay? Because I think Teddy Cahill is good to go. JJ's colleague, Teddy Cahill from Baseball America. Teddy, what's up?
How's it going?
Great. Good to see you. What's the shirt say? I can only see part of it. Pals World Series. Nice and simple. All right, so Teddy, let's start big like we do with everyone else coming on the show today. Thoughts so far?
I mean, the thing that obviously jumps out is the 1 and 2 for LSU with Skeens and then Cruz. It's hard to believe that had never happened before. I feel like, every couple years we would write something about how, well, maybe this will be the year that'll happen, and I just assumed that it would never happen because the draft is just goofy. But it actually did happen this year, and those two guys were incredible all season long. So that was what jumps out to me the first thing.
The other thing with that, Teddy, is you wrote the cover story for us going into the season. We had these star prospects, but also on the number 1 team, a team that ended up winning it all in the College World Series. The thing that stands out to me, how much did these guys pull something off that was rare by living up to every expectation that we're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, the hype on them and the team was incredible coming into the year, and it just built. You take the expectations that are at LSU, and then Dylan Cruz, who had been famous since he was like a freshman in high school. Obviously for him to go out and win Golden Spikes, he flirted with 500, deep into April, hitting 500, and then Skeens was, a little bit of a wild card coming into the year just because he hadn't been a starter only. Hadn't played in the SEC, but from the jump in the fall and then into the non-conference schedule, it was so good, and it just kept getting better and better and better. And those guys, they had a lot on their plate. The team had a lot on their plate, and they were able to kind of shut all of that out. Nobody had draftitis at LSU. I think the mental focus of those guys and of the team as a whole really is what allowed tonight to happen.
By the way, I've never seen the video we just showed on there of Skeens from behind home plate. Dude, he hides the ball.
He's very deceptive.
Like it's short.
But he doesn't have that life at the end. It's not
that's the one knock of everything.
But watch this.
Yeah, but
watch
I
this
understand.
video.
But watch.
When do you see the ball? Late.
It's late, but he's on the side of it. So that was like, if you were going to say the knock.
I don't give a shit. He's going 102.
Okay.
This is a good topic, though.
But they're looking for
Teddy, explain to Kratz that he's throwing 102.
I mean, like, I couldn't hit anything, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I think that some of the discussion about like, is it too straight? Is it not? Whatever. I mean, he's throwing at a speed. He has incredible control as well. I feel like that kind of overrides the shape concerns. But I do understand where some people are coming from on that. I just think the control, the velocity, and then the 2+ or better than plus off-speed pitches really makes some of that stuff kind of less of an issue for me.
Okay, I'm a little disappointed, Teddy, because Millie just left.
Millie left,
If
yeah.
if you listen to the BA College podcast, Millie is the third host. Millie likes to weigh in. So I'm a little surprised. Millie appears to be camera shy today, though, and wandered off.
It's a big stage.
Likes to do audio,
This is why we
but does
don't
not
use
like
the camera
video.
for our podcast. Most BA podcasts are now on camera, and I won't do it because she's camera shy. So
Yeah.
Millie will throw a bark in there every once in a while.
Oh, Millie
more
will-
than every once in a while sometimes.
I got one for
Go
you,
ahead.
Teddy. Do you feel like, I mean, what you said about all the stuff with LSU, they're creating, do you feel like the minor leagues is kind of just riding on the coattails of some of these huge programs saying, hey, you go develop these guys and we can take them from you because they have all the information that the minor leagues have?
I mean, to a certain extent, that's what Major League Baseball wants. That was part of the reason why they scaled back the minor leagues, is because they feel like, the college programs can do it in a manner that's more cost effective for them, right? If you outsource the minor leagues like the NFL has to colleges, then you get the benefits without incurring the cost. So if you look at what LSU has, they've got the facilities. They hired a literal Major League Baseball pitching coach a year ago to work with Skeens, and they have all of the toys. They have everything you would want there. So I mean, yeah, I do to a certain extent. If you're the Pirates, I mean, you're drafting a player that, yes, he has not played a professional game, but I mean, I don't see why Paul Skeens has to play minor league baseball. Like, I know he probably will, but I don't. Other than needing to get him on a 5-day, like part of a 5-man rotation, that's something he hasn't done before. But otherwise, I don't know what you need out of him in the minor leagues. And Dylan Cruz is, hitting's a little bit different, but like similarly, I don't know how much he needs to sit around in the minor leagues and learn how to do X, Y, and Z, because what the SEC has brought, what they've been able to accomplish at LSU, I mean, they're just at such an advanced plane.
I'll tell you what he needs from the minor leagues. He needs to figure out how to play at a place with a smaller and less than LSU has. He has to go slumming it for a little bit, and then he can go to the big leagues. He can't just go big league to big league.
I mean, there is something to be said for that LSU has all this stuff, and that there's a chance that he goes somewhere. Obviously, they'll have less fans. They might have less toys as well.
Dude, he took a pay cut. He's taking a
He
pay
took
cut.
a pay cut.
These two are taking a pay cut.
Not from their signing bonus. Canes doesn't pay that much.
Oh,
Maybe his minor league salary is more than
it's-
Canes.
It's not on the record what they get for NIL, but listen, Paul Skeens didn't go to LSU for nothing.
Tommy White didn't transfer for nothing.
He didn't transfer for nothing. All these guys that have gone to LSU, Christian Little, who didn't even sniff the field hardly, didn't leave Vanderbilt to go to LSU for nothing.
They love chicken. Canes.
I mean, how can you not love Canes, though? Not a sponsor, I assume, but could be maybe. Like, they've got a good setup there, and yeah, I mean, to your point, like, yes, the NIL situation is real, and I mean, they've done a great job making use of the fact that college baseball is such a big deal in Baton Rouge.
Teddy, the thing I want to ask you along those lines is, do you think that what happened with LSU this year is also kind of the harbinger of what's coming, which is the great college teams get greater because of NIL, because of the facilities? I mean, are we heading towards an era of concentration of the top prospects on a few teams?
I mean, I think there's a chance that happened before NIL, and now NIL makes that even more condensed. But I mean, if you look at Florida, UCLA, Vanderbilt, LSU, Texas, over the years, I mean, the talent has always concentrated there. I think NIL can help that along. That's not to say other programs can't pop up. What Wake Forest did this year certainly shows that if you invest and you bring on a staff like Tom Walter did, then you can get this group together. But I do think historically, you've seen talent get concentrated. NIL may accelerate that to a certain extent. The facilities, maybe to a certain extent, but I just feel like that's kind of been college baseball, at least in the 21st century, and I'm sure it stretches beyond that as well.
But isn't it an arms race, really? It's like football now.
Yeah, I mean, certainly.
LSU, Florida, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Tennessee's redoing their stadium. These teams have money, like big money, and they're spending it on players. So you look at Hurston Waldrop at Florida, right? Skeens, Tommy White. You go to Mississippi State, you go to Ole Miss. They have all these guys coming in. So is that good or bad for the sport, especially for, let's use a mid-major. Hurston Waldrop came from Southern Miss, mid-major, big program. They're good program, but not – they developed this guy for 2 years. I'm out, right? Get paid at Florida, go to the College World Series, be a first-rounder. How is this – what's the way, the path to keeping it more equal, or some of these lower schools like Oral Roberts who made it to the College World Series? How do they compete? Because it seems unfair.
I mean, it's a partial scholarship sport. It's always been unfair. And I think the way to make it more fair is more scholarships, because right now everyone has to make a business decision. If you eliminated that, obviously football and basketball work in a similar way, and some of it just you can't get. Fair is not a thing that college sports is set up for. But if you were able to at least say that like everybody is starting on a scholarship, like at 27 players, 25 players, whatever, were on full rides, then, now it's less of a business decision. Like there will be players that get on NIL money. But in baseball, like we have to be honest about how much money these guys are getting. Like I know it's not public figures, but like the headlines you see in college basketball and college football, where it's $500,000 or $1 million or whatever, like that is not the reality in college baseball. Most guys in college baseball are not clearing six figures or even coming close to it. And so the NIL money is a great add for some of these guys, but it is not what's turning players away from Southern Miss, by and large, not turning players away from a Sun Belt school, away from a Conference USA school, and turning them into the major conference programs.
Teddy, great stuff, dude. Great to have you on. Tell Millie we miss you. We'll bring Millie back for a podcast. But thanks, dude. Enjoy the rest of the draft.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you, Teddy Cahill. Follow all his stuff on BA as well. Well, tell me, how much, while we're waiting for our next guest, he'll be on any second now, how much do you think some of the top players are making?
They're getting six figures.
Yeah? Like you think Paul Skeens made six figures this year?
Oh, easy. You think Tommy White,
27 homers,
left NC State for $10,000?
No.
Exactly.
They're going to take more than that.
He's multiple six figures.
Give me a guess.
These guys
give me a
have.
guess. No one's going to hold you to it. Just give me a guess. No
I
one
will.
will ever know anyway.
I can't make a guess.
You can't what?
Have more of a.
You know, so you can't say the number.
I have an idea.
Got it.
But it's multiple six figures, and they all have representatives / agents that call around to these schools and say, Mike, dude, and JJ will back me up. These dudes this dude had a great year. Who wants him? And what's the highest bid? We'll go anywhere. That's why the guy at NC State this year, the catcher, Peoples, he just went to Tennessee. You think he went for free?
I'm going to stop us for now because our next guest is ready to go, but we'll continue this after, okay? Wake Forest coach Tom Walter joining us right now. Tom, great to have you on. Can you hear us? You got us good?
I got you loud and clear.
Awesome. Well, congratulations to Wake on, first off, an incredible season, but now let's focus on today. Two of your best already getting picked so far. Tell me about what you think of where they're going and where they were picked in the draft and how excited you are.
Man, we're beyond excited too. couldn't happen to two better guys. They're even better people than they are ball players. Come from great families. Just so proud of both those guys. As I texted both of them, I said the Cincinnati Reds and the Milwaukee Brewers got better today. So fired up.
Same division too. So let's start with Rhett Lauder, who, according to most, was probably the second best college pitcher this year, pretty easily, right? And I'm sure you'd make a case that he was the best. He's going to Cincinnati, and we've been talking a lot about how quickly a player can impact his major league ball club. The Reds are like the talk of the sport right now for what they're doing this year. Do you think that you could see Rhett in the major leagues with a team that could use starters by next year?
Oh, no doubt. I think he'll be in the big leagues next year. Again, what happens this year certainly remains to be seen, but who knows? He might help them down the stretch this year if they're in the playoff hunt come September, and I expect them to be.
Do you get that? Do you get these guys ready for the big leagues, or do you get them ready to win a national championship?
Well, we do both, I think. I think we do a really good job of both, and I think that's a great question because I think some teams put all the focus on winning and not as much on development and getting them ready for the next level, but we're very mindful about both. You know, our guys, Brock Wilkins spent a lot of time swinging with the wood bat. You know, we spent a lot of time on his athleticism, and the type of swing he has, I think, is going to hold up at the next level. And same thing with Rhett. You know, he's going to need that slider at the next level, and he's worked really hard at improving that pitch.
Along those lines, we talk about getting them ready for the majors. How many MLB clubs have come through to look at y'all's pitching lab? I've had teams describe it to me as better than they could hope to have at their, you know, for them organization.
Yeah, I think quite honestly, all 30 teams have been through, and they've sent like between 5 and 7 guys at a time through just to see. I think a couple of organizations basically cloned exactly what we have. And, you know, the key to our lab is just the collaboration that we have between Kristen Nicholson, the biomechanist, and our pitching coach, Corey Mascara, Mike McFerrin, our pitching lab director, our analytics guy, Chris Lewis, you know, our team doctor, Dr. Waterman, and on down the list. I mean, we just have a great team of people that are constantly collaborating about what these guys should do in the weight room, what they should do pre-throw, post-throw. So it's not as simple as just, you know, designing pitches. It goes into the weight room and in the training room too.
Coach, how's the golf game? And then after that, can you get the White Sox to come? Because they have a team right in Winston-Salem, and their pitching has been bad. So can you get them just to send their minor leaguers over to learn from you guys? Since apparently you guys have a staff of 42 people.
We're ready for them, AJ. We can bring anybody in at any time. We've had a bunch of big leaguers come through the lab this year, and we're getting more and more traction every year from pro guys wanting to come through and get evaluated. So it's been really cool watching it come together.
Well, I want to know how you guys made it to the World Series, obviously. Lauder versus Skeens. Is that the best college pitching matchup you've ever seen? Because I'm watching it on my couch. And those two guys were unbelievable.
Man, it was like a heavyweight fight. It was just punch, you know, counter punch, and one guy after the next. It was just, you know, I felt bad for the hitters on that day because, you know, it was tough going both sides of the baseball. And you know, we obviously came out on the short end. And I haven't brought myself to watch that game yet. I'm not sure that I'm emotionally ready for that yet. But one of these days I'll sit down and watch and appreciate just what a great game that was.
All right, well, one of these days, an NL Central matchup is going to be Rhett versus Brock. Who do you think wins this matchup? And don't give me the coach answer. They're not playing for you anymore. Who wins this matchup more times than not? And don't say the pitcher.
I'll tell you, in scrimmages, it's been pretty 50-50. Brock is more than most has held his own against Rhett. Some of the things that Rhett does well, Brock also does well. So, I think it's one of those things where there's going to be a lot of pride involved in that matchup, and that matchup might be really soon. And I'm going to put it at 50-50. I mean, I'm going to say that Brock holds his own, but Rhett's special for sure.
Well, 50-50 for a hitter, that's the Hall of Fame. So break down Brock a little bit for us. Let us know. We'll let the Brewer fans know what they're getting from him.
Man, power to all fields. unbelievable work ethic, unbelievable teammate, just the kind of guy that is infectious to be around, brings energy every day. The players, his teammates love him. Little kids love him in the ballpark. He's their favorite guy. So it's just one of those guys that just brings it every single day. And like I said, power to all fields. The defense is he can definitely stay at third. I know there were some questions about that in this draft, but in my mind, he can 100% stay at that position.
What does he have to work on?
I think just continuing to get better. If you look at the last 2 months of Brock Wilkins' junior year, the last 2 months, and his chase rate went way down, swing and miss rate went way down, the walk numbers went way up. So I think he's really trending in a good direction. I think he really just kind of settled in and really started to let the game come to him. And if he continues to do that, man, he's going to be a fast mover through an organization.
Speaking of fast movers, we talked about y'all's pitching lab, how advanced Rhett is. How much time do you think it will take? What does Rhett Lauder have to work on to be big league ready?
Well, I think he's pretty close. Rhett can throw the baseball to all four quadrants. He can he can ride his fastball up in the zone when he wants. He can sink it down to both sides. His changeup is a plus pitch. The slider is getting better and better. I think the slider is the key. As that continues to improve and becomes as good as the other two pitches, I don't know how you deal with this guy, because whatever the hitter does well, Rhett can counter that. And there's just not many pitchers that have those kind of dimensions that they can throw at you.
There's not many people that have his hair either.
No, he's my big time hair. I love it. In the recruiting process, he really wanted to come to Wake, and thank God we were smart enough to eventually figure out that we should let him. And he said, he goes, look, if I have to cut my hair to come to Wake, I will. And as soon as he said that, I was in on the hair. I'm like, you know what? As long as you're willing to cut it, I'm in. Like, keep the hair.
Good answer. You're not the Yankees.
Yeah.
Okay. Coach, who's next at Wake? We just saw you have 2 first-round picks. You made it to the Final Four at the College World Series. So who's next?
Yeah, I think Seth Keener and Sean Sullivan both have a chance to go today, later in the day. It won't be in the next 15 picks or so. But, at the end of the day, at the end of the night tonight, I think you could see Seth Keener. He's a right-hander. And Sean Sullivan, a left-hander. You could see both those guys go here tonight.
Okay, and then in the pipeline at Wake for next year, let's say 2024 draft.
Yeah, we've got Nick Kurtz, our first baseman. I mean, that cat. I mean, if he's not one of the first 10 picks, I'll be flabbergasted. We've got Josh Hartle. If Rhett Lauder hadn't have been the ACC Pitcher of the Year this past year, Josh Hartle would have been the ACC Pitcher of the Year. So we've got a left-hander in Josh Hartle. 4-pitch mix left-hander whose velocity is continuing to climb. Those barring something totally unforeseen, we should have 2 more guys in the first 18 picks next year too.
Coach, how did it work with Rhett and Brock when they got picked? Do you send texts because they have a lot going on in their worlds? Is there something that the school does? What's the process now that they get picked? Is there something that you can do kind of after the fact once the dust settles for them of the craziness of this day?
Yeah, it's just let them enjoy the moment. It's not about us. It's not about Wake Forest right now. It's about them and their families. They both got good support people around them. I watched the video camera of their houses, and they've got their teammates with them. They've got their family with them. So, right now it's just enjoy this moment, and knowing both those guys, they'll be back to work tomorrow.
That's right. One more big picture question for you. When you're talking to recruits in high school about coming to college, right? Not just going to Wake, but just going to play college ball instead of potentially going to the draft. Does having the staff that you have and some of the other bigger programs have right now that we're talking about, and the lab and showing the development that can be done in college versus at least some organizations and what their setup is like in the minor leagues, does that help the recruiting process? Is that something that's talked about a lot? I know there are at least some college players that'll be like, yeah, it's this, or I spend my 2-3 years developing in the middle of nowhere with potentially an organization that's not set up as well as some of these college programs like Wake are.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the player development, but we spend just as much time talking about your development as a man. We spend a lot of time working on our team culture. We spend a lot of time helping these guys become more intentional about who they are, giving back to their communities, being great students, being men for others, things like that. I think all those things go into it. When you're talking about being a big leaguer, we don't want our guys to have a cup of coffee in the big leagues. We want them to be 10-year, big league vets. We want them to get to salary arbitration and beyond. And I think what you guys know, because you've been there and done that, the mental part of it is just as big as the physical part of it. All these guys that are drafted today have the physical tools to play in the big leagues, but do they have the mental tools to stay in the big leagues? And what we do best, I think, is prepare our guys for that part of it.
Hey, well, congratulations to you. You guys have done an incredible job. What a year for Wake and the program, and for the guys, and more coming up for you to watch. I'm sure you'll be keeping an eye on the rest of the draft.
Wait, hold on. Wait, before we let him go, is Witt's dad here? Is Bill here at the All-Star game?
I'm sure he is.
Whit Merrifield's dad?
Yeah, Whit Merrifield's dad works at Wake Forest.
I know.
He's one of their army of people they have there.
Bill's our guy. We wouldn't have the pitching lab without Bill Merrifield. He's out there beating the Wake Forest drum every chance he gets.
All right.
I love it. I love it. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the time, and congratulations again.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate all you do for our game.
Thank you. Really, really appreciate it. That was awesome. And want to throw out there that today one of our partners is Recreate. As you can see, the official CBD of MLB. They want to send you to the 2023 World Series presented by Capital One, and you can follow _Recreate on Instagram. Post a photo in your favorite baseball gear using the hashtag live play recreate along with the hashtag RC sweepstakes. No purchases necessary. This ends July 31st. Open to legal residents of the 50 U.S. states and D.C. ages 18 plus to enter. For more on rules, visit charlottesweb.com/World Series. Recreate, the official CBD of Major League Baseball. MLB trademarks used with permission. And we'll post all of that for you too. So if you're, into baseball and you're watching us and you're trying to go to the World Series for free, then this is your opportunity. So
that's what the A's are trying to do.
What?
That's what the A's and the Pirates want to do. Go to the World Series for free.
Spend no money and go to the World Series.
Yeah. We made it. Look at us. We're here.
All right, so let's see where we're at this point. So Cleveland's coming up next, correct?
Colt Emerson just got drafted. Gatorade Player of the Year by the local Seattle Mariners.
That's right. The Mariners' first pick of many coming up pretty soon here, right?
Many. They get the extra pick because J-Rod's so good.
Do you like that?
Yeah. I love the fact that, one, producing talent gets you rewarded. That's good. But two, you only get rewarded if you keep them there for the vast majority of the year. You don't get rewarded as a team if you call a guy up, if you game the system for salary arbitration reasons.
This was a huge problem in my mind in this sport, especially over the last 10 years. Chris Bryant was the poster boy of this. Dude had nothing left to do, and you have to hear the bullshit from a front office member being like, well, a little bit more defense. I know he was the best hitter in spring training, and he's been great in the minor league.
Weird voice for a front office guy.
It was what?
A weird voice for the
I have
front
to
office.
change the voice to some extent. Yeah.
When you talk like AJ, you go, whoa, you're always in my house. You never played. So the front office voice is, both are true.
My front office voice was like a little more of a higher pitch to it, right?
Would you pay the same amount of money for something if you waited 15 more days and you got it at a discount?
Depends what it is. Ask JJ.
Would you pay?
If it means that you get the house or they get the car for it's like a lease and you get it for an extra year.
Wait, but I'm going to add a caveat, okay? You're potentially going on a date, let's say, and the date is going to be very impressed if you have that car, but you have to wait 2 weeks. The date might not be there in 2 weeks. Someone else might ask her out. The Chicago Cubs.
But
they're not trading them.
They're not. Nobody's gonna be like, "Oh, you didn't call them up."
Hold up.
Chris Bryant, he's on
We choose
our
Chris
team.
Bryant.
There's reasoning for this.
The
This is what I used
call.
to say, because this would happen every year in the bigs. And I don't know if it directly actually ended up happening, but I'm like, what if this team misses out on the playoffs by a game or two? And we're like, they didn't call the guy up for 2 or 3 weeks. It's just not right. And even if the exact scenario didn't happen, it's not a wild scenario if we kept this going. Last year, perfect example. Julio Rodriguez called up from the jump. I would make a very strong case that he would not have been called up right away. They would have waited 2 or 3 weeks. Mariners made the playoffs. Maybe they don't if he's not called up in the first few weeks of the season right away instead of 3 weeks in. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. Do you remember who was the guy who blocked Chris Bryant? If I remember, it was Mike Olt. They said that Chris Bryant's defense needed work so that they could play Mike Olt. And nothing against Mike Olt.
Not known for his glove.
Is that right?
Mike Olt.
If I remember
I
right.
mean, that's around that time.
Yeah.
Well, they had to say something. What else were they going to say? He doesn't
They
smile
should
enough.
come out and say
No, they can't say that.
They can't because then
That's-
they'd get in trouble. There was a
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
There was a case that went on for about 4 or 5 years, and the thing that they had, the Cubs won it because it was impossible to actually prove that it wasn't a baseball decision.
Didn't it happen to George Springer too, with the Astros? Didn't they do the same thing? But it wasn't as highly publicized. They said the same thing. His defense.
And it wasn't as highly publicized because he wasn't the best player in all of baseball in spring training that year,
True.
which is Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant was legitimately the best hitter in at least Arizona.
In the whole land.
And now he's gone to Colorado
and get hurt.
Yeah, but it's like he went to Colorado and he got a lot of money.
A lot of money.
A lot of money.
A lot of money.
Rockies are a weird team.
Multiple six figures, as he said it before.
Multiple.
Six
figures on 6 figures on
Does
6
that mean
figures.
12 figures?
No, multiple six figures means
More
like
than 100 or
300.
200. Right,
It's not 100. It's more than. It's not 100. It might
Chris
be
Bryant's
200.
in
It might be
multiple
300.
9 figures.
He is in multiple 9 figures. Rockies, by the way, on foul territory. And if you're new to the party here, we have a show 1 to 3 Eastern weekdays. Probably the least talked about team, the Colorado Rockies. I would say.
Why would we talk about it?
Yeah, because we don't
They're
waste
not-
our time.
They're not trying.
They're not
They're
trying.
not winning.
They're not winning. We
They
talk about the
signed-
A's, but they have a crazy situation going
But
on.
they sign the most random people. Like, why would they sign? They trade Nolan Arenado, but they sign Chris Bryant.
There's no
Why?
plan there. There's no plan.
Right? Am I wrong?
No, there's
I
no
feel
plan.
like it was, and this is this conspiracy theorist in me.
You can say whatever you want. No rules here.
I feel like they got rid of him, and then it was like, well, we have pressure from somebody, from MLB, from somebody. You have to go and sign somebody. Not saying Chris Bryant's not a good signing, but why get rid of Arenado and then sign Bryant?
In fear that he was going to opt out when he also, by the way, didn't opt out. Now, sure, he could have, but he didn't end up opting out.
Because he went to a place where they were going to win. If you put people around him,
Cardinals aren't good this year.
Cardinals
yeah.
suck, by the way.
okay, they wanted to win.
True.
He did win when they were there. This year, not as much.
Not this year.
It just doesn't make sense. I don't know. The Rockies, ship without a rudder.
Yeah.
They try to develop pitching.
Right, because the bad teams, at least for most of them, you can say, I see a pathway, right? This team's building. I mean, the Rockies technically are building. They've
They need a
actually
better
done,
team
and here's where JJ can come in, they've done a nice job of drafting and developing certain players. Their farm system is in a pretty good spot. Now, I don't know what they'll do with those players once they get up to the bigs, right? And they might not re-sign guys the way they should. To me, JJ, if they're doing a decent job of developing and drafting to an extent, try to take a model like Atlanta in that when a guy comes up, lock him up to a long-term extension. There is money there. They're not the cheapest franchise.
Right.
Just give me some sort of plan there, right?
But the problem is they don't have a core. Who are the guys you want to lock up?
McMahon
They're not here yet.
locked him up.
Ryan
Okay.
McMahon? Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
They locked him up already, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like with the Braves, it was okay. We're going to lock up Acuna. We're going to lock up Albies.
That's not a good
We're going to lock
example.
up Harris. We're going to lock up stars.
Yeah, but they have a bunch of stars.
Right.
You
The
can't.
Rockies
You
don't have
But
them.
I'm answering Scott's question. When Scott says you want to lock them up, and I'm like, I don't know if they have guys that are
Tovar.
like, we want to be tied into you for 8-9 years.
Tovar,
Elias Diaz.
I mean, maybe Tovar.
Zach Veen when he comes up, if he's what he's
No,
supposed to be.
Maybe not.
But Brendan Rodgers was supposed to be that guy.
I mean,
Well, he had a bad shoulder injury now.
I was going to say
I
he's
know.
got an injury. Like, I don't know if you want to lock
But
up.
again, but the Braves locked Michael Harris up less than a year. Acuna, right? Albies, Riley. They locked these guys up with not. They didn't know. One of them could have hurt their shoulder. But Brendan Rodgers for them was supposed to be that guy. He wasn't that guy. Now he's hurt.
I just don't think that the Rockies have the core yet to say, okay, this is our group. Maybe they'll get there, but they're not there yet. And the other problem they have, I know the NL East is tough, but the NL West, you know the Dodgers are going to be there every year. You know the Padres are going to spin. The D-backs are in a similar situation, Colorado, but they've done everything better. Corbin Carroll's better than anyone that the Rockies have produced in a long time.
What is the altitude? That's their one excuse they rely on. Constant altitude.
We can't get pitching.
We can't
It's
develop
all-
players.
yeah.
Guys get
It
hurt.
feels like excuses, but it also felt like for years
it's
with the
real.
Rockies, it felt like the Rockies. Everybody was the same people. They were all the front office. Were all buddies. They could never get rid of anybody. So it felt like they just were spinning their wheels. And then if anybody ever put a nail, oh well, the elevation, it's a hitter friendly park, all this stuff, and it's like almost like a woe is me kind of.
I feel like that if you go back way back, the Cubs used to use this with Wrigley because it was like, oh, the wind changes so much. You know, they used to do that back in the 70s and the 80s. And then it was, oh, the Braves can't win because of the launching pad. You know, which funny now to think of Fulton County as the launching pad when I compare that, of course, to what the Colorado has. But the Red Sox did it with Fenway. Oh, you know, the monster makes it tougher for us to win. It is something where if you're struggling, it is convenient at the same time. And all those teams, the Braves basically went from being disasters in the 70s and 80s to being a team to envy
Juggernaut.
most of the last 3 decades now.
They just took Hurston Waldrop, your guy from Florida, and my thought was, I think they showed a video of him pitching at Durham, and my thought was, is it better now for a guy like Hurston Waldrop, who didn't throw strikes, possibly, you said one time?
Just in the championship.
In the championship game. But so is it better for him to go to the Braves and be in that pitching juggernaut or the Rays?
Braves.
I completely agree. I think the Braves do a great job of creating guys to be great big league pitchers for a longer time. I think the Rays buy a sports car. I should say it again. The Braves buy the sports car and they drive it. They keep it clean. The Rays rent a sports car and they drive the absolute piss out of it. And then it's time to go. But they get the most out of it. So I think it's awesome for him to be able to go there. He's going to learn how to throw a fastball down and away.
You know what the Braves love? Where's he from? Not Florida, originally.
Georgia, probably.
Thomasville, Georgia.
They love.
The Braves love dudes from Georgia.
They do.
I mean, they are the best, right, JJ?
Yeah.
Lot to choose from.
You start McCann, Frank Hoare, like all these guys are Michael
Go back
Harris.
to Adam
Michael Harris.
Wainwright. I know we think of him as a Cardinal, but he came up
No,
with the Braves.
he was a Brave.
But they love, for the last 25 years, they've drafted dudes from Georgia that were Braves guys.
That's an easy state to pick from.
Yeah, but do you know
There's
why?
a lot going on there.
They have a mentality, and I think they've done a really good job of promoting this message. I've talked to people that have worked for the Braves, and sure, you can say it in any organization, but yes, there is a ton of talent in Georgia, and what they say is, we're not getting beat in Georgia. So they're going to favor Georgia players more. They are going to be around players that are from Georgia more naturally, right? That's easy for them. So they make sure they dominate their territory. JJ, do you hear anything like that as well? Because I've heard that from people in the organization.
Absolutely.
I'm not going off a conversation in the last few weeks, but I've heard that over my years covering the Braves. Like Michael Harris, I definitely asked. I'm like, how are you on them? They were like, we do our best to make sure that someone like Michael Harris was not selected elsewhere as the diamond in the rough. And we said we missed him and he was in our backyard. That's cool to me.
When Jason Hayward was a high school senior, the Braves were never seen scouting him. They had one of their scouts in the woods.
Come on.
No way.
True story.
Like basically, and the thing about it is Hayward was really patient. And for everything I've heard, they're all tall tales maybe, but the Braves kept bringing that up. Man, it's tough to evaluate a guy who draws 3 walks and 4 at bats. How do you get a sense of this guy? Look where he fell. Oh, with the I think whatever pick it was, the Braves select Jason Hayward. They've done that over and over, and they have guys who might be willing to float a larger number to other teams because they want to be a Brave. Everyone there grows up a Braves fan, most everyone, and they have the success where you want to come, like you said with Waldrop. If you're Waldrop, I know you probably wanted to go higher, but you also are thrilled that you're in a successful organization that really develops pitchers. And by the way, when we talk about guys moving fast, the Braves are fearless when it comes to that. A.J. Smith-Shawver, a high school pitcher from the 21 class. How many teams have taken college starters in the first round in 21? They're like, not ready yet. The Braves are like, no, move them up. Spencer Strider's college career was about that long because of Tommy John. They looked at him and said, this guy's stuff is good. Let's send him to the big leagues. They've benefited from it.
That's been my big thing lately when we're talking draft is, what's the downside? I mean, you guys know, obviously, certain players, if they come up and they really struggle and they get sent down, okay, it can be a little bit of an ego shot, but is it that big a deal? Like, if they're making it, if it's a selling point for the Braves, and there are guys coming up that are having success, for the guys that don't, here, I'll give you an example. Vaughn Grissom got called up last year, played well, league adjusted a little bit. This year, he's been in the minors. Okay, so are we looking back going, man, they blew it by bringing him up too soon? Or is he down in the minors working on things and they called him up really early? And if it had worked and stayed that way like a Michael Harris, then awesome. It's great for the team, great for the recruiting pitch to others. And if not, okay, he had a month in the bigs. He knows what he has to work for to get back.
Yeah, it depends on the player. Because some guys get devastated and can't never come back because they're mentally, I didn't make it. And then you got dudes that go down and come up, and they're better. Alex Gordon, right, with the Royals. He came up, failed. They're like, you're playing left field.
Switched position and made an all-star team in AAA. So you have to have the mentality, and that's the biggest thing, I think, with the Braves. Yes, they might take over Georgia. Yes, they might have all this. I feel like they do a great job knowing the people that are in their system. Some of their free agents or people that they've traded for may have some questionable morals. Character.
You can say it. We can say what we want here, Zuna.
But look at what the guys that come up. Who has been a troublemaker? Who has been a guy that is, there's questionable character issues. It's huge. It's been forever, and the reason I know it's been forever is because the whole crew came from the Braves and went over to the Royals, and Dayton Moore ran that organization that way too. Not as successfully because they didn't get the pitching. But
they did win a World Series.
They what?
They won a World Series.
They won the World Series until 2020, as the Braves did in the 20 years before that.
I want to get back to what you said, though, about the Rays and the Braves. The difference for me, watching them, the Rays, whatever it is, you have a really good slider. You're going to throw 47 sliders in a row, right? And The Braves don't do that. The Braves said, we're going to work on – it seems like they were like, we're going to work more on your total game.
Yep.
And that's why the Braves have been able to develop starters better. The Rays don't really develop starters because they don't let them go deep. So the Rays rely – and this is big leagues. The Rays rely on 12 outs a night from their bullpen every night. And that's why when they get to the postseason, they get caught because they can't make the roster transactions. I did a Braves-Rays game yesterday. The Rays made 4 roster transactions because their bullpen was tired. So they just said, all right, you 4, you shit canned to Durham.
You got
We're sending
options.
we got 4 more dudes coming. And they had a fresh bullpen. Now, the Braves don't do that. The Braves are the only organization that I can think of quickly that play the same 9 dudes every game. Think about it. Their lineup is the same 9 dudes every day.
But that's
Charlie Culberson has been there, has not touched the field.
a month.
That's also a health thing.
But
their dudes are staying
No,
healthy.
Arcia went down. They brought up Grissom.
Right.
Played him. Right? But the dudes that are healthy, Acuna, Albies, Riley, Olson, Rosario, Harris, Murphy/Darno.
Yeah, well, they're getting premium talent, so they don't have to platoon. Some teams get by with platooning, right? San Francisco, because they're still building up. Cleveland, because they can't buy players, right? Some of those teams at the margins, the Rays, for
But
years.
these guys are developed.
Platoon.
I'm talking about a lot of these guys are developed through the Braves system, though, right?
Yeah, but they also happen to have
Albies.
guys that can hit lefties and righties. Now, there's a lot of reasoning for that. You could say they're letting them face both sides.
yeah,
They're not
they let 'em.
platooning them. Correct. I'm big on. Who's not big on that? It was so easy to dump on the Dodgers the one year with a
Every
lineup.
29 teams.
What? Not
They're not-
every team is platooning. Every team?
A lot. In
Yeah.
the minor leagues, I bet we read some of JJ's reports. He's probably even saying that this guy could be a utility type of player.
Sure.
When AJ and I came up, if you are a utility guy in the minor leagues, you better start figuring out what your degree was, because that's not it. Now, we're shifting this guy in Double-A from he plays 3 at second base, 3 at third, 3 in left field. We're just shifting him around. To
Well,
make
that's
his,
versatility versus platooning, though.
But-
I like that.
yeah, but
But
it's
notice who they do that with, like the Rays. The Rays do that for a lot of their guys. Wander Franco, though? Wander Franco
switch
played
hitter.
shortstop most of the time.
He's also a switch hitter.
Right. But I'm saying is that, but positionally, defensively, Wander, you get to do this. You other guys, you've got to work around Wander.
Yeah.
I completely agree. You have to build an organization around that type of player. The Red Sox can't start moving Marcelo Meyer from short to second to third just to get his versatility up. Marcelo Meyer is a big league shortstop until he proves he's not, whether that's with his bat or whether it's with his guante.
Yep. Fair. All right, let's move to the Yankees. They picked a shortstop just now.
George
Lombard Jr.
George Lombard Jr.
Man, I'm old. I am
We knew that before the
decrepit.
draft.
I was covering the Macon Braves 1995, and they had 2 center field prospects on that team, 2 of the best prospects in the organization. One was Andrew Jones. He was 17. The other was George Lombard Sr., who I think was 18, who was supposed to be at Georgia as their new running back star. And he got shipped out, by the way, because Ray Goff, the Georgia coach, was there in June sitting right behind home plate. And they the Braves shipped Lombard out the next day, like, we're not going to give him a chance to
Bring him back.
yeah.
George, that's how old I am. George Lombard and I went on a recruiting trip to Georgia together.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're that old?
Yeah.
It's a good thing you got out of the game and you're not coaching, because you look tremendous.
Good thing. Good point.
Yeah, well, the best way to just shatter your face is to coach. Wrinkles,
It's like being president.
yeah. You want to age fast? I don't know if
Vanish.
anyone does, but we don't have a sponsor for that. But hey, if you want to age fast, coach in the big leagues, especially a shitty team.
Not a compelling pitch. I don't know if I'd buy
No,
that.
it didn't work. All
Oh,
right.
yeah. By the way, they don't pay shit, and you get told to do everything. How to
And
do everything.
if anything goes wrong, it's your fault. Or the hitting coach's fault because
This
the
is-
Yankees have let go Dylan Lawson. Brian Cashman has never fired a coach in season. And this is from Brian Hoke on Twitter. He goes, he once told me he doesn't believe in doing so, that you need to evaluate each season in full. Clearly, he'd seen enough. And I believe Cash has been their GM for like 26 years, something along those lines. That's a long time to stick with something and then go, yeah, Jamison Tyon with his 6-something ERA shutting us out just because we don't have Judge. Something's got to change. And I wonder for draft purposes, because Volpe was such a big pick for them. And yes, he's been up and down in his rookie season, but he's hitting better with the tweaked stance. People want to point to something like that. Hey, are the hitting coaches helping him? Are they hurting him? You know, he's toned down the leg kick, right, and gotten a little simpler with his swing. Is that him getting advice from his minor league teammate over chicken parm dinner and them going, why weren't you at the dinner? And now you're out.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
you're
where
shaking
were
your
you
head.
on this one? Where were you on that one, Dylan? Like, I'm not saying it's his fault. Obviously, the team is playing incredibly poorly at the dish. But if you're getting minor leaguers helping your big league guys, and it's not something that you figured out, and you actually went away from what you're preaching, the leg kick, the launch angle stuff, obviously all those things did not help Volpe make the adjustment quick enough. Because that's what it is in the big leagues. You're good enough to be there. That's why you're on the team. But if they didn't help him, if Dylan didn't help him, Volpe may have single-handedly gotten Dylan fired.
No, come on. That's harsh. That's so harsh. Here's the thing with the hitting.
They're not hitting also, just their whole team.
No, but
He's a scapegoat.
of course.
He's a
But
pressure
Dylan
release
Lawson-
valve.
Dylan Lawson, I'm sure he's telling these guys the same stuff. It's not like he doesn't know. I mean, I don't know Dylan Lawson.
He knows what he's doing. I know Dylan. He knows what he's doing.
I don't know him from that Derek Jeter bobblehead on the set here, right? I'm sure he knows hitting, and I'm sure he's
He does.
telling Anthony Volpe try something different. But because the chicken parm story takes over, and people are like, oh, Dylan Lawson's not doing his job. Well, bullshit.
I really do believe the hitting coach. I remember Dylan. I know Dylan a little bit. I'm not saying like we're best buds, but he was at University of Missouri years ago. He come up through the levels. And I do believe that hitting coach is probably the worst job in pro baseball. And I say that because what you're talking about there's also the part of everyone who reaches the majors at this point probably has someone personal that they work with. You're a collaborator as a hitting coach. You're not going there. This is not Charlie Lau to age myself again, where you're like, no, everyone's going to hit like this. You suggest to Aaron Judge, maybe you want to look at this. You don't tell Aaron Judge what you're going to do. You don't even tell Anthony Volpe. He may be a rookie, but you suggest things, try to help them feel positive about themselves, things like that. But the hitting coach is the perfect person to fire.
To be the first person to get fired in the middle of a season. That's tough.
It is tough. We used to have a saying, and I think Krauts will back me up. Hitting coaches did their job not at the field. It was after the games, at the hotel, bar, or wherever, on the bus, or before the games if you have breakfast or you run into somebody, because that was when you gave your guys confidence. There are guys struggling. You see a guy, you have a beer with them, and you say, you're good. It's more of a mental job than it is actual physical. Yes, there are physical things, but mentally you have to check in. We know your guys. So now, does Brad Wilkerson take over? He was in college this year.
I don't know if he takes over or not, but I completely agree with you. Think about your worst hitting coaches in your entire career. They probably had no idea what was going on in your
Kevin
life.
Seitzer? Oh, wait. What? Did I say that out loud?
You did say
People
that.
have been waiting for more on that story. Braves country has been waiting for more on that story.
You're doing it now.
Now is not the play.
Now it's not the place, but I'm just letting you know because we like to be clear and transparent with the people. A lot of people are asking, so I'm just putting it on your radar at some point. Your Braves fans are like, I'm intrigued. You're teasing us. I'd like to hear more if you're serious about it. Just putting it out there.
At some point,
Okay, fair.
And I will kick back to a little bit what you said. Like Dylan Lawson worked his way up. He came into the Yankees system and was the hitting coordinator. He didn't work his way up, and then he went big league. So that's a rare.
You're right. It's not like he went low A to high A to double A to triple A.
That's a rare thing that's happened in the last 5 years in baseball. Is people create something and they sell it to organizations, and then they're like, "All right, we're all going to do this," and it's like there's not that like long track record of anything. So I wonder if that kind of went into it for Cashman. Like he hadn't had any track record before of bringing a team out of this, or if it was something from higher than Cashman that was forcing it.
I go back to pressure relief valve. The Yankees had to do something, right? They can't magically make Aaron Judge healthy. They don't want to say, okay, we're going to fire the manager to show that we're unhappy with where we are. They can't demote half the team. The easiest thing you can do. This shows that's right at the All-Star break. They have shown we're taking this seriously. And now, if they turn it around, we can hear all the stories about how that was the moment that Cashman or take your pick of whoever acted decisively to turn the season around. Or if it doesn't work, it's just, well, they tried.
So
there's more danger to not doing anything if you're others in the Yankees organization than doing something.
So we
And
had
it's
this
easier than
conversation.
trading for a player. Fire your hitting coach.
But we had this conversation about GMs, and Cashman's been there forever. Oh, well, I tried, right? Oh, we want to rebuild. Wait till my guys get there. We're on a 12-year plan, so I don't get fired. Wait till my 12-year plan, right? Well, Cashman's like, there's got to be heat from Hal Steinbrenner saying, what the hell's going on? We can't hit.
Sure.
We only lost one guy, Judge, and we can't hit. So he's saying, all right, well, here's my pressure release valve. I'm going to fire the hitting coach. And it buys Cashman time to try something to get maybe to the trade deadline. I don't know who they're going to trade for. But Rodon's back. Rodon's back.
No, but they need all. I mean, this is what the conversation's about. They need offense. Why can't they hit besides Aaron Judge and without Aaron Judge? Like, you have a massive payroll. What the hell is everyone else doing? Why is there no fear in the rest of the lineup, right? An outfielder for sure, because there's been games where it's Jake Bowers, it's Willie Calhoun. Who else? It's McKinney. Like, that's not what you want as your May lineup at times, right? I know some of them have had success, but let's be real.
Aaron Hicks is doing just fine.
Aaron Hicks is doing fine, and that's another piece of the puzzle of why we're talking about the hitting coach being let go.
Josh Donaldson. I saw a tweet
Josh
today.
Donaldson's not doing shit, but guess
Listen,
what? He's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to hit.
Tweet today. Josh Donaldson has 10 homers, 19 hits.
The
If he
least.
went 162 games, he'd hit 62 homers. But he'd slug like super high, but his OPS plus would be under 100.
Under 100, yeah.
So what is it? Do you want him to hit 62 homers but have a 90 OPS plus?
I think if it's 60 homers, which means that he's hitting a home run every, 2.5 games, you'll take a guy that's not getting on base that often. If it's 60, that's a different level if he's on a pace like that. Okay. Otherwise, though, if his bat cools in terms of power and he's not getting on base, Yankees fans, they are looking for a scapegoat because there's terrible offense being put in place. I'll give you one comment here in the chat right now from Jackson,
Esteban
who's a regular.
Florial.
What?
Is it going to be Esteban Florial?
It's not.
Okay.
Although that was definitely a question asked the other day because they said part of the reason was he's not on the 40-man right now, which, again, I'm like, that's your reason, though?
Oh, it's totally a reason.
You're protecting your 40-man? We need offense.
They lose somebody. You lose somebody, and when you take somebody off the 40-man, that is, our precious 40-man spots. What about winning?
The 40th guy on a roster, you're fine switching him in and out.
His name is Naga. Not going to be here very long.
or not going to matter.
Let me ask you guys this. Lawson said he doesn't believe in stats, which infuriated the fan base. Now, I don't know that quote directly. I'm going to guess there's no hitting coaches in the bigs right now that are allowed to pull off a quote like that. Now, they might downplay going too crazy.
I'll save AJ here. I know Dylan Lawson. Sorry, Jackson. He does believe in stats. If he actually said that, if that was his words, he was trolling the fans, and I love that by him because he believes in stats. I know Dylan Lawson about this much, a little bit more than JJ does. He does believe in stats.
I want to take us in a different direction now to one of our bigger picture topics that I'm super curious to get JJ's take from. So you can't trade picks. You can trade some comp picks, but you can't generally trade your draft picks. And it's something that I always try and bring like a casual fan perspective. I get asked about that a lot. So, for example, the Seattle Mariners have the 29th pick, right, in this draft? Yes. So there's only 28. We actually just finished. Round 1 is actually done now.
Yeah.
Bryce Matthews just got taken by the Houston Astros. And there's only 28, even though there's 30 teams. The Mets got docked 10 picks because they spend too much money. The Dodgers got docked. They tried.
Phillies were trying.
You get punished. You get punished for trying.
Shame
the Dodgers,
on you, Phillies.
They're down to 36. But the Mariners have back-to-back picks at 29 and 30. 30 is a comp pick, which they can trade. They didn't trade it. But, JJ, how cool would it be if we're at this point in the season right now, right in the thick of things, and a team like the Yankees could say, let's add a little push here. We'll put our first-round pick in a deal to help us get Cody Bellinger right now. Or flip it. I'm the Dodgers. I don't get to pick till 36, and they do a great job of selecting later and still finding great players. I want to get myself into the top 5 no matter what. I might trade one of my upper echelon prospects just because I love Wyatt Langford so much. I'm throwing a name out there. Just so my fans one time can get a top 5 pick. How cool would that be to follow storyline-wise?
Okay, let me ask for the alternate version of that. What if you were the owner of a team that has no interest in winning right now, that is tanking your fan base right now?
So you're the Oakland A's.
So let's say the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good one. And if you said, hey, I'm going to trade my first-round pick, I'm going to trade my second-round pick because it's going to mean I don't have to spend $5-6 million a check, bonus, So not over the life of a deal, money that I've spent up front, and I'll do it for an up-and-coming prospect who's not up-and-coming or whatever. I hate to be devious about it, but I think part of the reason they haven't allowed it is because they fear that not everyone will deal with it on the up and up.
True, but they have to spend the money anyways, don't they? Don't
If
the
you
teams
trade the
have
picks,
to
you
spend
don't.
the money in a draft?
No. Once the pick goes away, the money goes away.
Oh, it does.
So that's how the slot money works. Like the Mariners, for the Julio Rodriguez situation, for example, because Julio was called up right from the jump, won Rookie of the Year, Mariners get that extra pick, which is 29, right? That's the 29 pick. And they get $2-something million in slot money to use. They trade that pick away, the money goes with it. So you can trade all of that away if you want.
So you could take you've got 10 mil to spend, and you could turn that into 4 mil to spend. And you could talk about, we added a nice, useful reliever who the other team covered the cost of. He's going to help our bullpen. And by the way, they're willing to pay, because the Braves did this one year, if you do remember. The D-backs, they did it legally, but the D-backs wanted to clear money. And so the Braves traded effectively nothing.
Right?
To take on an injured player, an injured pitcher.
Was that Touki Toussaint you're talking about?
Yeah, Touki. And then they bought the D-backs first-round pick, Touki Toussaint, to do that.
It happened again.
On that team.
Wait.
You're on that team?
Wait,
this happened again, though.
Was that John Coppolello? Was he the GM at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
John Hart.
No, not
It was
John Hart.
Capello,
John
and
Capello.
you know who was running the D-backs at the time? I believe it was Dave Stewart.
Dave Stewart.
John Hart and John Capello.
Yeah, for the Braves.
Wait, but there's
That was
another
really-
one. We could even fast forward. There's one we're missing. The Angels and Giants made a deal same exact way. Will Wilson. They got rid of the prospect for money, right? Wasn't that the same scenario?
Similar scenario. I would say that by the time Will Wilson was traded, some of the shine had already come off. I felt like, where it was
Never
like
even heard.
sometimes
Blow.
you see Colin Moran was traded by the Marlins, and I think what it was is they brought him in, 6th pick in the draft, if I remember right, and they brought him in and they kind of came away going, we took him 6, right? And so they spun him as quick as they could, like, okay, we feel like his value's here now, and if we wait a year, it might be here, which we see every now and then.
They
And
just did that again, J.J. Bleday. Pitch in his swing, hasn't figured it out, has to do a retool. He'll probably shine with, like, the Dodgers or Astros at some point, but until that happens, right, J.J. Bleday has been a huge fail of a draft pick right now.
And when you trade them away and get something for them, it helps lower the temperature on that because you traded them. Oh, we didn't
got
turn
Puck.
out, but we traded them.
They got A.J. Puck.
Yeah.
And that's worked out great for them.
Yeah.
A.J. Puck's their closer.
Didn't that happen to Dansby Swanson? He was legit, though.
No,
Didn't they
but-
trade him and then they had to wait till June for him to leave?
Trey Turner.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trey knew he was traded. That was so weird. They got rid of that. That was too much. Trey is
Where he
sitting in the
played
minors
rest of the year.
on the Padres. He knows he's gone.
That's what I was thinking of. It was
And
Trey
it's weird on many fronts
Yeah.
because now you have a team taking care of a player you already know is gone because he was a player to be named later, right?
Right. He was a player to be named later, but he couldn't be traded. Pete Incaviglia rule. He couldn't be traded until 1 year after, and he was traded 6 months after he was signed. And so I remember talking to him in spring training that year, and he's like, yeah, I'm kind of here, but I'm kind of there because
And my thing is just you should be allowed to trade the player. Who cares? He has to wait a year. My counter to what you're saying is who cares? If there's a team that's that fucked up, they're always, just like teams are going to always look for an edge, the owners that care most about profits are always going to look for the edge on making money and let us shit on them for doing something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd still take those cases to be able to have conversations right now about teams utilizing draft picks to get better or utilizing draft picks to get other prospects so that other teams can pick higher in the draft. That is good conversation. That's good for the sport. And we have the uniqueness of doing a draft in the middle of a season where your draft can impact how the rest of the season plays out. That's cool.
I'm not entirely against it because it would be kind of cool to see it become part of the trade deadline.
Yeah.
We have a July draft now, not an early June. If the start of the trade deadline was teams cashing in veterans that are on the final year of their deal to pick up a pick here or there, that does add some interest.
Even if a team is trying to get rid of money, and that's how they're doing that deal, right? If a team's trying to get rid of a player that they've got signed for a lot of money and they don't want him anymore and there's picks being involved, it's still activity. And I've read a few articles about it this week, and it seems like obviously people aren't going to put their name on a quote, right, JJ? But front office members have said, many of them, I'm into that, right? It's more options for them. And the ones that are doing things well can utilize that as another way to make trades. And it seems like, and I haven't spoken to anyone, we're at the Players House, but at some point we can try and ask someone either with the union or other players. I think players are into it too, like the union in general, right? It can create more activity. It can get some of those trades done or players over to other teams quicker. So I think there's a lot of pluses to adding something like this. And MLB should seriously consider it because way more people would watch the draft.
No.
It would
Not
also
gonna
slow the
It's
draft.
just not going to happen.
Why?
Because they won't do it.
I think it could happen. I do
It
not
won't.
think it's that far-fetched to be able to negotiate that at some point.
Go back to what he said at the very beginning.
That
I
owners
don't
tanking
think
can
they-
prevent it.
I don't think they trust each other.
Yes, exactly.
If-
Do you think
if you can't
Fisher trusts
Yeah, but we still have a
Artie
league.
Moreno?
We're not in a permanent lockout right now, so we're still playing.
Yeah, but They don't trust. They don't trust each other enough to say this player, this player, this player. They don't. They
But
don't.
there is one other thing with that when you talk about that. Okay, imagine a year where there is a Adley Rutschman, a Bryce Harper. I think MLB is scared of a Dodgers, a Yankees, effectively buying the number one prospect because they could throw enough money. Because the thing about it is we're talking about this as pure baseball deals. There are other deals out there where you could say, hey, terrible team who's picking number one, we will buy out your worst contract for the number one pick. I'm not trying to pick on the Rockies, but maybe I am. If someone
Chris
said they
Bryant.
would take Chris Bryant's contract right now for the number one pick, I think the Rockies would probably do that.
What about the Nationals? Strasburg.
Well, if we're just making if we're making all kinds of scenarios, then also obviously my dream is to have a floor so that teams have to spend a certain amount or you have to spend a certain percentage of something.
But if you don't get that with this, then you are talking about a potentially that would be bad for MLB and the draft if it was looked like the teams that have resources, the teams that are willing to spend. Let's not say have resources, but willing to spend could buy the number one pick.
Yeah, but how far do we want to go here? Like, yes, teams already take PR hits like that. Think about it. I mean, there is a ball club that still has to sell to their fans, I'm getting rid of the number one pick to get rid of a contract.
People don't pay that much attention.
Yes, they do.
Certain ones do.
Talk to Pirates fans. I know the Pirates are playing a little better right now, right? But talk to them about how they feel about how the team is run, not from a GM perspective, from a financial perspective. They all talk the same way. I mean, the most popular thing to do is to find Bob Nutting in the city, and like there'll be like a 12-year-old taking a picture with him and like putting his middle finger up, and then they put it on the internet and it goes viral because fans hate it. Like that does matter. What? It's real. Look it up.
It does, but the draft pick things, because for not more often than not, but more than any other sport, baseball draft picks don't work out all the time. NBA, NFL, they usually work out. I don't know what JJ could probably give us better numbers on that, but the rate of guys hitting in MLB in the first round is much less than other sports.
The other thing I would say, though, that ties into this is it's a steep slope. I'm not saying every number one pick works out, but most number one picks work out in some way. By the time this is the NBA drafts this way too.
I'll raise you Brady Appel or Mark Appel, sorry.
Mark Appel.
Okay.
But there aren't many of those. Whereas and that's true of the NBA draft too. By the time you get to pick 20 in the NBA draft, it feels like it's like, hey, did anyone want this? We don't think you can. Whereas, but in the MLB draft, by the time you get to pick 20, your chances are way less. Well, maybe unless you're the Dodgers. If you're the Dodgers and you take them 26, it's Walker Buehler, it's Will Smith, we could go through the list.
So what's better? Teams who pick higher or teams who develop players?
Ideally, you want both, but the Dodgers are the team that are the gold standard. But the Braves are good, but the Dodgers have spent the least amount of money. Them and the Angels have spent the least amount of money in the draft, 2012 to present. The Dodgers have produced more MLB pitchers over that time than any other team. The Dodgers are top 5 in the hitters they've produced as far as total production. They're top 10 as far as pitchers. They've done that while picking at the back of the first round every year.
Forever.
And forever.
I would rather have the team that can develop.
Yep.
I want to develop. I'll take the player, whoever the player is. Say we pick JJ, and he has certain tool. We can develop him to be a big leaguer. Not a team that can just spend. You have to have the development, and that's what separates the good teams, the Dodgers,
absolutely,
probably the Rays, from the other teams.
The other thing I would say about that, though, is some teams do a really good job of knowing what they're good at, and other teams don't. The worst example ever I can think of, which is 4 front office regimes ago or 5, but I remember not long after I started at Baseball America, and the Orioles took, I'm blanking on the name now, but an outfielder, a smaller school college outfielder, top 3, top 4 rounds. And we talked to their scouting department about him, and they were like, we think he has all the tools to develop into a really good catcher. He doesn't move all that great, but he's got a good arm. He's really smart. He can hit. He's going to be a good catcher. He's a conversion guy. He caught a little bit, if I remember, in college, but mainly an outfielder. Then we talked to their player development side, and we said, so how is he developing as a catcher? And they said, he's not a catcher, he's an outfielder. There was such a disconnect there that one side picked a guy because they thought he could do this, and then they handed him to the other department, and that department said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it our way. That's the difference between, like you're saying, I think the good organizations, they're all working together on that. In the bad organizations, everyone's their own island, and everyone's fighting for territory, and that's where you get a lot of dysfunction.
Even
That's
some,
the Orioles.
even
That's
some
the
big
Orioles.
time, even some big time teams. Some big time teams. Analytically, they look at the baseball guys and they say, "You're terrible." Baseball guys look at the analytic guys and say, "You're terrible," and they're just two separate. And to me, that's why I think development is more important than what happens here. And I love what you said about what is the kind of player that we want. If the Braves say, oh, we want Georgia guys, there's something in, like, what is it about the Georgia guy? But once they're in the organization, you have to develop them in their way. It's kind of coming back to bite the Cardinals. The Cardinal way right now produced a lot of players that would come up, but not a lot of superstars. So, I don't know.
Cardinals done a good job of drafting and developing pitchers, though, recently. I would say they have
Starting pitchers, not relievers.
starting pitchers.
But is that going to continue with Yadi gone? Because I saw a decline in the pitchers that they started calling up from the beginning of my career to the end of my career, in the sense of they used to call up guys that were guaranteed you had to throw a strike with 2 pitches, and your third pitch had to at least be a competitive pitch. But those 2 pitches, you had to throw strikes. You had to be a 1-2-5 to the plate to get called up to the big leagues. That started deteriorating, and now, like, is that going to change with Yadi or Molina not reigning the helm?
We'll see. I mean, so far the results seem to indicate maybe not.
JJ, Yo-Yo Morales, still on the board. He was a consensus top 15 pick in a lot of places. Why is he still there? Guy from Miami is hit, can play third. I was sorry to change the subject. But
No.
Isn't that who Seifert talked about?
yes.
Yeah.
And said he should have been picked early
Early.
on in his
Top
mind?
10.
One of our college experts, David Seifert, was on.
Yeah.
He said top 10.
Yeah.
2 possibilities. One, there have been some questions with the bat, but that's the main one, right? Some guys are not going to go yet, or some guys might not even go today, because we see it. There's some guys who are being pushed down for whatever reason, which is almost always financial. Or there's a third possibility, and I'm not going to speculate with him, but every year there's 1 or 2 guys, we don't get the medicals. You know, I'm not saying he is. I don't want to make clear. I'm not saying he has a bad medical, but there's 1 or 2 guys every year where you go, why did he fall? And then it comes out after the draft that there was concerns about medicals. But usually it's if we were sitting here this time last year talking, we'd say, well, why is Brock Porter still on the board? I know it was a high school guy versus college, but why is Brock Porter on the board? Because the Rangers were going to make him paid on day 2. And basically he was floating a number to everyone else to push himself down to that pick. Doesn't always work. Jay Groom was floating that number and was basically supposed to go to the Padres, and then the Red Sox called the bluff. They said, talent's the talent. We're going to take him. We'll give him the offer. Are you really going to turn it down? And he didn't.
I love that game. That game is cool. I'm going to try and sneak myself to a certain team and see if I can pull it off. But then it's like, are you going to turn down millions of dollars? Are you going back to school? Are you not going to play in the bigs right now? Most dudes probably in the first 40 picks would have a hard time saying, I'm good. I'm not going to take the dough.
I've heard tons of stories like that. The whole I'm going to take this much. Andy LaRoche, I don't remember him. The Dodgers selected him when it was draft and follows. He went and played in the Cape, and he was as a JUCO guy, and he goes, I'm not signing for anything less than $1 million. Their first offer was like $600,000, and I'm probably getting this right. So
was he a first-round pick?
No, later on.
Yeah.
And he said $1 million. Well, Dave, his dad, ex-big leaguer, 15 years, was kind of walking through it with him, and he goes, the Dodgers came to him after his year in the Cape, right before the draft and follow deadline ended, and they go, we'll give you $1 million. He's like, he had played himself into be a first-rounder for the next year. And his dad goes, you said you would play for $1 million. You told him that. You got to be a man of your word. And he signed.
That's awesome.
I heard the opposite story of a guy, not LaRoche, but another guy. He was a high school kid. And he didn't understand how it really went. He wanted to go to college. And so he thought that he would float a number that would make sure he went to college. And it's like, I am not going to sign unless someone gives me, it was like $1 million. And like 7 teams got back to him and said, great, we'll be looking to take you. And then he had to call a scout that he knew and be like, actually, I want to go to school. I thought that $1 million would be enough to basically.
Did he come up with this on his own? Does he have a rep, this kid?
No,
or did he have a rep? Well, that's
like
why.
This. He goes, $1 million. And they were like, all right, cool.
So this was Dr. Eagle.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Well, we had
multiple
a few
hundreds.
draft conversations. Remember who was on with me for Ross Stripling? Were either of you on? Or were you both out?
I was there.
Yeah, I was there.
You what?
When Ross was on last night?
You were there?
We were both
Remember
there.
Ross was like, I had no idea how the draft process worked. Zero clue.
And he was drafted in like the 9th round or something. He was like, I'm going back to get my finance degree.
Yeah. And then he got picked like 5th round or something like that after that. But he was saying, and obviously, it's different if you're not a first rounder or first few rounds, but he was basically saying like he had no clue. He had no one to ask about. He just got a random phone call. It was interesting.
What about – no, go ahead.
I was going to ask you guys, that's one of the things that's also dramatically changed in my mind. When you guys were drafted, what was it like? Because I feel like back then it was like you would get a call from someone. It wasn't like, the name came across a scroll.
There was none of this.
No.
I mean,
what was it like for you? Because my story's in the book, so you guys got to buy the book. Tao, the backup catcher.
I don't get a free book?
No, not you.
Oh.
People who are listening.
Don't give it away yet. Don't give it away.
I'm not buying a book.
I am.
You're buying a book?
Hell yes.
Fuck that. I'm getting a free book.
No.
No, I'm helping the boys out.
I'm definitely buying a book.
I'm helping the boys out.
No, I'm buying a
Give
book
it to
anyway.
somebody else.
Even for a gift, I'm buying a book. We buy some of it. Sorry to sidetrack, but we've had some writers on and we buy their books. I'm definitely buying Kratz's book.
I'm not buying Kratz's book. He's
Okay,
giving me a book.
Guess what? Best thing ever. Because I know I haven't been there in a while, but I'm usually in Orlando at AJ's spot. I'm buying. You can get a book from Kratz, but I'm still going to replace it. I'm buying a book on the site and I'm putting it on the damn desk. And I'm getting Kratz to sign it so we know which book it is that I actually bought. And that's the one we're using at Studio AJ.
Anyway, tell your draft story.
Back. Oh,
That was
Charlie
an absolute flex.
Charlie Soto, another Orlando guy. My bad.
He was actually
After-
just talked
after
about.
AJ's
Sorry to
story.
sidetrack, but
I want to know about McGonagall. Anyway, go ahead.
When I was drafted, this is 94, so almost
Black and
30
white
years
TVs.
Yes. There was no internet. You just sat by the phone hoping your team called you. The phone rings. You're like, nobody call. Nobody call my house for next 2 hours because I don't have call waiting. People that don't know what call waiting is.
Yes.
Sorry.
Ask somebody.
Yes. You get the busy signal. Nobody knows what Scott does. Scott doesn't know what a busy signal is. So,
I don't know what is.
busy signal.
No, because everyone picks up for me and they make sure that they're not on the phone with someone
He doesn't
else.
know what busy is.
He
I
doesn't
know what a
busy
busy signal is.
Okay.
How young do you think I am? I'm not as young as you
You're
think.
like
But
27.
I'm in my
JJ,
mid-30s.
So I get a call on the cordless phone that was like this big.
He was rich.
Answer.
He had a cordless
Did you have to pull out the antenna?
phone. We had a
The
cord.
antenna. Answer. It was the Twins. Never saw a Twins guy. Never saw a Twins scout. Nothing. Yeah, it's the Twins. We drafted you 3rd round, 70th overall or whatever it was. We'll be in touch. Click. That was it. And then about a couple days later, the scout showed up at my house. So we're going to offer you this. What do you want? And there was no anything. But it was, I thought, Kratz asked me this earlier, I thought I was going to go higher. I thought I was going to go in the 1st round. But I didn't. But you don't know because the timing, and there was no TV. There was no MLB Network. There was no Foul Territory. There was no timing. So you're trying to guess where they are in the draft. You're like, okay, it's been 45 minutes. They're at pick 18. You had no idea. So you're just hoping when the guy calls that you're right. And it was just so different.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Along those lines, when I started Baseball America in 2002, the computer I worked on was bought because of MLB secrecy. So, a little after you were drafted, MLB put a complete blackout on where players were picked after, I think, the 1st round. So they would say, there was a stretch of years where they would say, here are our picks. But they wouldn't tell anyone for 2 months what rounds they went in.
I remember that. And then they hid their signing bonuses too.
So they could try to lower signing bonuses, and they said to keep college recruiters from lining up boards based on that. And so Alan Simpson, to his credit, founder of Baseball America, he had sources everywhere. And so he could buy the end of the draft, he had giant boards. And he's like, okay, I've got these picks. Okay, I've got these picks. And then he would fax the draft to you if you paid for the draft fax. And the money raised from that, before that we had one computer at Baseball America, but that bought computers for everyone because MLB wanted to keep the draft secret. Now this is in the late 90s. Mel Kiper had been talking about the NFL draft on ESPN for 15 years at this point, and MLB was like, we don't want anyone to know who's been picked where.
That is insane. It's like part of how Baseball America was born, right?
Yes.
It's part of its history. MLB's, it's basically collusion, right? Or holding back information that should be known, helped spark a business.
So at least they told you where you were picked.
Well, when they called me, they had to. They're like, we picked you here.
That is wild.
So think about this. Think about this. The draft used to be in June, which I wish it still was because of numerous reasons. But they didn't want to interfere with they don't want to interfere with the World Series and the whole deal. But now guys can't play this year, a lot of them, right? So they also get an extra year of control between the 40-man and the whole deal. The thing is, you would get drafted, like for me, and my son asked me this the other day. He said, when you were drafted, how did it work with college? And I said, well, you had until like August 1st.
The first day of school.
First day of school.
Yep.
No, you had not just the first day of school. It was until you walked your
Into
foot
the class.
across the door
Into the first class.
your first class.
Yes.
Yep. So players would wait through drop ad, and they wouldn't go until the last day of drop ad because you were still eligible to sign, even though your school's classes had begun. It did not. You are no longer eligible the minute that your body crossed through the door of a classroom for the first time.
Yeah, it's crazy. I tried to explain this to my son. He's like, what? And I said, you had to walk into class. So wherever you were going to school, you had to walk. Once you walked into class, you were done. You had 3 years. There was no transferring. There was none of that. You were going to your school. But it was crazy to think how much has changed. Because now everything, pre-draft deals. Think about agents now. They do all this stuff. And it's all pre-draft stuff. They already know. Teams, we've talked about it. Teams pick guys based on what they'll sign for. They'll call you, and I know guys, they call you and say, will you sign for $1 million? You say yes, they're picking you. Now, this isn't in the first round, but 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th
You
round.
have to know your number. If I could give one piece of advice to players who they're not going to get picked today, but get picked tomorrow, get picked on day 3. You have to know what is that number at which I will sign and what is a number at which I won't. Because what you said, they're not calling you to spend 10 minutes on the phone with you and get your life story and negotiate. It sometimes is, we like you, will you take $552K at this pick? Yes or no? Yes, we take you. No, we don't. Actually, I should say yes, maybe they take you. No, they don't. Because someone else, some other scout is calling someone else and also saying, well, you take $552K at this pick. And maybe they don't think that player is going to be there, but he is. Maybe you do get still bumped. But if you say no, they're going down
You're
the
out.
line.
All right, so I want to mix in some questions, and we'll have one or two more guests to finish out the night. And I don't know how to say his last name, so I'll have to ask him when he's on. Steven.
Soto.
No. I'm talking about one of our guests. Thank you, AJ. Classic AJ line. Shock. Did I get it right? Steven Shock is going to join us in about, 15 minutes or so? Or less than that, maybe
Let's call him
5 to
Big
10
Donkey.
minutes. What?
Just call him Big Donkey.
Big Donkey, yes.
Is he a BA guy?
He's a former Virginia pitcher. I think he does some stuff podcasting for D1.
You remember him? He was the guy that talked about how
Oh.
Dippin' Dots are awesome.
Dippin' Dots guy?
He's
with
awesome.
The long hair? Yeah.
He's awesome. I'll get to my draft story because AJ and I are the same age, but somehow he was drafted 8 years before I was. I had no idea he was drafted in the early 90s. I was drafted in 2002, and I sat in my college SID. Eric Varner was his name, and I sat in the SID's office, and I heard him say, redraft number 983645, redraft number, draft number, Blue Jays, and I had no idea what round I was drafted in. I knew we were in like the late 20s, so I left a note on my college coach's door because he had gotten sick of it, didn't want to listen to it, and I said I was drafted in the 28th round, and I was really drafted in the 29th round. I drove home half a mile from the college campus to my house, and I missed the call from my scout, Chip Lawrence. And I sat there, and I'm like, is this bad? Like, he just said, hey, we drafted you. You know, give me a call when you get this. And my thought was, I missed this call. I'm not actually going to play now. But fortunately, I called him back. You what?
It worked out.
It worked out. It worked out.
The other thing back then, though, that was crazy, if someone's not as ancient as me, is it used to be you could draft for as long as you wanted.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, more rounds.
The Yankees
Dude.
went 100 rounds.
It used to be, it was 50, and teams would stop, but other teams would keep picking. There was a year the White Sox picked a woman, a girl.
Yeah, no,
It
multiple
was
times. Multiple
Schuler's
It
daughter.
was the GM or the scouting director's daughter.
Ron Schuler's daughter.
Yeah.
They drafted her. Yeah, but there was
And I never understood why teams didn't do it more. Because if it was me, when you had the draft and follow, why wouldn't you just take
Everybody.
Keep taking everyone, and then that one guy pops in a JUCO, and you're like, oh yeah, he was our 242nd rounder. We'll negotiate with him.
You got a good point. It was so different though, because draft and follows they don't have those anymore because teams would get you, and they would have your rights till the next draft.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember, Kratz and I obviously have a different story, but I remember when I was coming out of high school, I had JUCOs calling me saying, "Come play for us. We'll save a spot for you if you're not drafted where you want to sign. Come play for us for a year." And multiple JUCOs would say, "Hey, come here," and they would save spots. And I was like, "Okay, maybe." Because once you went to college, you were locked in for 3 years. That was
But
out.
JUCO, you can come back every draft and follow. and they get drafted. If you said no on the money that week, you could get the money the next week.
That's right.
Nick Markakis, there were guys who would go to JUCO. Adam Lowen, who would go to JUCO, and then it's either you get the draft and follow money, or you go right back in the draft a week later.
Again,
Remember Bobby C. and the other guy
The loophole free agents.
became free agents, guys, because they weren't offered a contract.
Which
got
then
more
showed what guys could actually make
in a
if it was free.
Yeah. Who was the other? It was Bobby C.
$10 million that guy made. White,
Matt White.
Lee, not it was the first baseman,
Travis Lee.
Travis Lee,
Travis Lee did it.
and then there was another pitcher, Matt White,
Matt White.
who was we had him on our cover in a beach, like on the beach in Rays garb.
I have a question for you. Well, I have two questions for you. One, Matt White, wasn't he the guy whose grandmother had the land that was worth like $12 billion? Because it had some mineral on it that he could only find somewhere, which is awesome. And then Baseball America screwed R.A. Dickey with his
We didn't
elbow.
even know. We weren't trying to screw him. We screwed him, but we weren't trying to. We just took a picture of him, and then someone noticed that he was holding his arm weird. They did a medical on him, and they realized he didn't have a UCL.
Because the picture came out?
No, he was standing. His arm didn't go straight. It was bent.
Right, like all of ours.
So they had the five starting
Benson,
pitchers for USA Baseball
Koch.
on the cover.
Billy
And
Koch.
RA, how he held his arm was different than the other four. And a doctor saw that picture and went, let's look at that closer. And they discovered he didn't have a UCL. We cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, we didn't need to. We're really sorry about that. It worked out for RA.
Yeah, because he was Rangers.
He was the first
He was
rounder.
going to be like 500, 600,000, which is a lot then. And they signed him for they're like, by the way, you don't have UCL? Here's $50,000. Go get him.
Who was the pitcher? You would remember this. First rounder for the Padres. Got a medical, and his $1 million bonus went down to $250,000. But then he ended up marrying the owner's daughter from the
Was
Padres.
that Stauffer?
Stauffer. Thank you.
Tim
Yes.
Stauffer?
Tim Stauffer.
Tim Stauffer. Totally worked out.
Nailed it.
Got way more than the extra $750,000.
I want to mix in some questions. And JJ, we put this out there. If you want to give it a retweet to your fans to answer anything live, just throwing it out there. That's how we'll kind of finish things up. So working on getting Steven Schock to join us. And then we will finish up with some questions in the YouTube chat. There's a few right now. So let's start with Raphael. Will any of these two-way draft picks, like Bryce Eldridge, get a legitimate chance of being a two-way player in any of the organizations? Are we seeing – you're shaking your head, Kratzy, but are we ever going to see teams giving a shot to a non-Shohei Ohtani type of talent, like Brendan McKay, right?
He gone.
Well, he's hurt, right? Is Brendan still out?
That's part of the gone part.
Because the player gets hurt and they can't handle doing both jobs? JJ's itching to go.
I am. I'm itching to go on this because I think that the best hope is for a guy who is a late round pick, not a first round pick, a late round pick, because they can fly under the radar. Okay, I can go through the last 5 years. Mason Wynn, strongest arm in the infield in minors right now, would be one of the strongest arms in the majors when he comes up. When he was drafted, we're going to develop him as a pitcher and as an infielder. Well, there's a problem with that. How do you work out a throw schedule where it's like, you did great, 5 innings today, you're going to go back to shortstop tomorrow? No one will do that.
Cronenworth.
Well, they could use him on the mound, I will say that.
So then,
it's true.
Yeah.
The Cardinals need pitching. It would have been nice if they developed him.
But the Pirates did it with I'm blanking, but they had a top pick recently who was a two-way guy. They let him DH for 1 year, then he focused on pitching. You see this all the time where coming out of the draft, they're like, we're open to it. It's just so hard. Casey Kelly years ago did it for 1 year, and then it's almost like we're going to do it long enough to determine where we think you're more promising, and then we're going to streamline it because it's just they don't want to take the risk of screwing it up. I also have heard, though, of guys who get drafted. The Giants used to do this. They would draft position players because they liked their arms. This is way back. This is during the, this is the early 2000s. And they draft hitters who they like their arms. And then they would wait for them to fail as a hitter. And then they were smart about it. Then they would wait and they'd say, it's not going to work out for you as a hitter. Why don't we move you to the mound? And one of the guys, John Kutlangus, I think led his league in batting the first year. And privately, there were Giants guys who were real bummed about it because it was like, yeah, it's going to cost us 2 years before we can develop as a pitcher.
We can't
now.
break the news to him that we don't want him as a hitter for 2 years.
Also in the book, the Pirates, when they signed me, after the Blue Jays released me, the Pirates signed me, and they go, before we release you halfway through the year, they said this the day they signed me to my minor league contract. We'd like to see if you could pitch.
What'd you say?
I didn't care. I got a job. But in my mind, I'm like, this sucks.
I had the Twins tell me the same thing.
That you might pitch one day.
They're like, if you can't hit, you're going to pitch.
You
I'm
pitch.
like, I can hit. I don't want to pitch.
2,115 later, you could hit.
Yeah. But I was
Yeah.
like,
Worked
hell
out.
no.
Especially
Hey.
once you're in pro ball and you see what pitchers do, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never doing that.
But, okay, so
Wait,
let's
no, I
go-
got to stop us because our guest is ready. Can we go
Oh.
back to it?
Oh.
Guest is waiting.
Oh, shoot.
I like this, though. I'm into it. Well, let's get our guest going. It's time for Charlotte's Web former player access. Steven Schock, a.k.a. Big Donkey. Give him a follow. He's got many. At Big Donkey 47, loving the draft right now and joining us. Hey, there he is. Big Donkey, good to see you, man. How's draft day one going for you? What do you like? What don't you like so far?
It's been really good. I like that we've had, for the first time in history, 2 back-to-back the first and second pick coming from the same school. That's just crazy to think about. It makes me feel a lot better about LSU winning the national championship because, everybody assumed they should, but seeing those 2 guys go first and second overall is really, really cool. But it's felt right. The guys who have all gotten picked so far, it's been guys where every pick it's like, okay, no, that makes sense. They deserve to be picked at that spot. So it's just been really, really good to see these guys fulfilling their dreams out there, honestly.
What's the next stop on your baseball tour around America?
So the next stop, we are shooting up to the Cape Cod League, going to see the All-Stars of tomorrow. So we will be going up there, I believe, the 15th of July through the All-Star game. So I'm wicked excited about that for the New Englanders listening. But I just can't wait to get up there. The Cape Cod baseball is like nothing I can describe as I'm fighting my headphones.
Hey, I called Cape games for 2 years. That's 2 summers of my life, I would probably say.
You were
Yeah,
a Cape guy.
Me?
Freddie
Big time.
Prinze
Big
Jr.
broadcaster. Yeah. It launched my broadcast career. So, but
Hey,
no, I love
Freddie
it.
Prinze
It's awesome
Jr.
up there. What?
Chasing the girl around.
Yeah. Freddie Prinze Jr. chasing around Jessica Biel.
Summer Catch was
Yeah.
literally made. It was about me, but it was a broadcaster. They were like, "That's boring. We got to make it about a player." So then they decided to make Freddie a player, which made more sense.
They picked
Sorry.
a really good one for it. I mean, to get Freddie cast as you, that's a huge compliment, I would say. But that's exactly what the Cape Cod player experience is like. I can attest to it. Every guy there, that was the exact experience they had. The movie Summer Catch.
So if Freddie Prinze played Scotty Braun, who would play you, Big Donkey?
Oh man, Bradley Cooper, most likely, either him, Zac Efron, just because like the body comps are there. I think would be a go. No, I'd probably get like Jack Black or Danny McBride, something like that. Or the guy from Impractical Jokers. That guy. I look like him. Or Rosie O'Donnell in A League of Their Own.
You. Brian Quinn is Rosie
Yeah,
O'Donnell.
exactly. Him.
Is there
Yeah,
for us?
so I think those are all comps. I mean, large dude with a beard. There's endless possibilities out there.
Wait, you're going on a tour around America for the summer, and you're going from Cary, North Carolina, to the Cape. How could you miss like the New England Wood Bat League and the Valley League and the Coastal Carolina? Like you're only going big time. I think you've changed.
Oh yeah, no. I'm definitely selling out. I'm starting up there because it's the guys I tweet about the most that are typically up there. So I figure it'll be good to highlight them, kind of dip people's toes in the water of summer college baseball. And then once this goes really well and everyone's like, oh, what's he going to do next? That's when we go into those grittier leagues, the leagues that don't get as much attention. We go, oh no, this is what your favorite players do in the rest of the year. Like, it's not all glitz and glamour. Like, there's some good stuff in there. So I'm really excited to get those leagues highlighted as well, and hopefully make it out to the West Coast League at some point too.
You're going into the jungle. That's the jungle. The Valley League, the Coastal Carolina League. That's the jungle.
Oh my goodness, the Cal Ripken League! I can't wait to go back to the Cal Ripken League. That was one of my favorite places in the world. I mean, playing baseball for the Big Train was so much fun, and honestly, like where I'm at in my career, I see a lot of guys I play with making their debuts and making it to the big leagues. And of all the teams I was on, the Big Train probably has the most guys in the MLB right now. And granted, I played with them while I was younger, but there's just talent everywhere. And that's what's so good about college baseball is the access to it's getting better and better and easier. So it's an exciting time for sure.
Wait, which league has the best Dippin' Dots?
Oh man. So for good Dippin' Dots, you don't want it to be too humid. Humidity plays a huge factor in the melting process, I feel like. There's probably science behind it, but you could look it up or you could just trust me and skip the reading. So, typically, I would say wherever the least humidity is. I know there was one year that it was the year COVID happened. The only summer league was in Texas. I feel like that would probably be the honestly most elite place to eat them, just because the air is drier typically. I think I'm not a meteorologist. And it's also just hot all the time. So I feel like, the refreshment factors there too, which can be slept on.
Steven, when you get up to the cave, first of all, we got to get you some earpieces that fit so you don't have to keep grabbing them. When you get up to the cave, we're going to need some videos because I've never been to Cape Cod, so I want to live through you. So I need you,
You say make some videos?
Yeah, make some videos, post them. Because I want to see.
You want to see the landscape of the Cape? You've never been up there?
No.
You've never just gone to watch a game?
It, and I want to see him like in Amity where they filmed Jaws. Him in a Speedo going out in the water. The mayor of Amity's like, there's a shark.
There are sharks up there. That's real.
I know.
That's real.
I'm letting you know. You said you've never been there.
Like I'm not messing with the ocean. Not this year. This year the ocean is just it's coming out with a vengeance. I'm not trusting it this year. I will go on a shark tour.
Hey,
no,
don't go
God,
on a
no.
sub.
No. Oh, please no. But
especially a sub controlled by a Logitech.
Yeah, there were a couple of red flags going into that one. But
Steven, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so my goal up there in the Cape, I'm gonna spend about a week up there. I'm gonna try to highlight some of the games from, like a day in the life perspective of the players, but also what's it like to go to and catch a Cape game as a fan. Just because it's really hard. I know I say college baseball is accessible. The Cape is kind of difficult to get to, and I understand it's one of the extremities in the nation that people don't want to go all the way out there. So my goal is to give that experience to you guys. So hopefully you'll let me know if I do a good job of that by saying whether or not you liked it, and we'll go from there.
You've been doing a great job, dude. We love following everything you're doing. So give us some of your favorites in the draft this year. Like, who were you excited to see get picked? Teal, obviously. You can talk about
Homer.
Teal. Teal dropped a little further than most people anticipated. The Red Sox might have gotten themselves the catcher of the future to go along with. We know Marcelo Meyer's going to be a stud when he gets up to the big, so they might have their catcher and shortstop for the next 10 years locked up now.
Yeah, Kyle, what makes him dangerous as a baseball player and what I think will give him a longevity in his career is like he doesn't really realize how talented he is because he's just going out and trying to have fun. Like he's got one of the most violent baseball swings I've ever seen in my life. His helmet always flies off. And it's that way not because he's trying extra hard or anything like that. It's just because he's going out and having a blast while doing it. Like he's one of the most athletic kids I've ever seen. He's not worried about like, oh, mechanically, what should I be doing? He's just worried about like, oh, there's a ball. How do I get it and deliver it to where it needs to go in the fastest possible way? And so I'm really excited and happy for him. I think the Red Sox really got a good one for him, or good one for their organization. I was really happy to see Rhett Lauder going to the Reds because I really have been impressed with the Reds lately in their development and just like the way they move people through the farm system pretty quickly. Speaking mainly just because I follow my friend Andrew Abbott and he moved up really fast. But I really like when teams do that just because I feel like sometimes these college guys will go into the minor leagues and then just, you know, you don't hear about them for a number of years. And if they make it, great. And if they don't, you don't hear about them. So I like I like the teams that can really just move guys up fast. So I was really happy to see Rhett Lauder going to the Reds. Um, I am really excited for Jake Geloff too. When the time comes, I think whatever team ends up landing Jake is gonna really be happy with their choice. I mean, I I'll I'll probably be one of the more biased media members you meet, and that's because I'm just now kind of realizing I'm an actual media professional now. So I'm slowly weaning off the bias, but not very effectively.
Steven, Virginia can't get chin straps for their helmets, so when Teal swings, stay on.
I proposed the idea to him, but I think he just thinks it looks cooler, and I honestly don't know. Like you guys know how ball players are. Like they're all superstitious. I feel like Kyle, like when he hit his first double, the helmet came off, and he was just like, you know what, we're rolling with that forever. Helmet comes off, extra base hit happens. Like just I can see it being a superstition thing, but also maybe when he gets to the minors and like rookie ball, we'll find out. We'll finally get an answer because I assume they have fitted helmets and and things that'll be a little bit tighter to keep the helmets on.
So you were in a bar when Walker Jenkins got selected. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so I'm in Southport, North Carolina, which is a beautiful place. Highly recommend visiting it if you've never seen it. Really cool area. But, I'm driving through and we drive by South Brunswick High School. And I'm like, wait a minute, they're about to have a kid drafted from there. And so I was sitting eating dinner with my wife and we were watching the draft. And I believe it was 5th overall that he gets picked. And I'm looking around and I'm expecting the place to go nuts. Like it's on the bar's main TV. It's the biggest TV in the place. They had switched it to, I believe, Summer League basketball at around 6:40. And I was like, hey, I don't mean to be that guy, but is there a TV where I could get this draft on? Because I think some of my friends might be going. And also, like, there's a guy who's literally maybe half a mile away who's about to become a multimillionaire. Like that could be cool. That could be cool to see. So I'm expecting like some people to at least be like, oh yay, nothing, just crickets. And they show his draft party and he's at home and there's lots of people there. Everybody's super happy for him. But I really expected something more out of the crowd. And I tweeted the video out and someone was like, well, that's probably a lot of people on vacation, a lot of people visiting. And as someone who was visiting and was at that bar, I was like, that could also be a good point.
I cannot believe that whole situation.
Yeah, there's no way.
His hometown. Like, give me a little bit of love just because he's not there.
No, but it shows that people don't know high school players. They don't know them.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to ask. Do we not promote Obviously,
we
high school
also?
baseball.
When you say we, because I don't want to be affiliated with some of the we's that you might be going down. I don't work for the league.
Does America not promote high school, obviously, but college baseball enough? I mean, I think we're getting better, but do we not do it enough?
I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, it's like pistachios. Can you ever have enough? Probably not. But it's something where everybody's been trending in the right direction. Like, strictly speaking, from social media, because that's where I live my life now, in some weird turn of events that has placed me in this position. But just from a social media perspective, the number of people talking about college baseball, whether it's professionals talking about it or, people just casually watching the game and talking about it, it's going up. And, this was the most viewed College World Series Game 3 in the history of the sport, I believe. And it was the number one viewed event on ESPN for, I know that day. I don't know what other metrics, but there are some good metrics associated with it. And you get over 3.5 million people watching this baseball game, and it's just really like growth that hasn't been seen before. And I'm hoping it'll kind of become one of those things where it just becomes such a household brand where, if you're living in an area around one of these big teams, you're sitting down at dinner, it's like, hey, did you see what Craig did in this baseball game today? Like, I think once we get to that point, college baseball will really be in a good place. But it's a matter of fighting until we get there.
All right, so since Scott and Kratz don't promote it, we can blame Baseball America.
I don't know who's to blame.
Yeah, we hate baseball. Hate it.
Literally all they do.
My life's work of the last 20 years down the drain.
It's literally in the name. Baseball and America.
Baseball America literally created pick by pick after what round did you say it was? 2?
The first.
After the first, when they didn't tell everyone where they got picked. Eventually, they probably looked and said, well, BA is doing this anyway. I guess we'll let the picks know when it's happening.
The crazy thing about it is we have further to go. Absolutely. But if you think back to the 70s, none of this, anyone cared about any of it. We're sitting here live streaming during the draft. In the 70s, I don't even know if it got into the newspaper. In the 70s, when the College World Series ended, I don't know if they remembered who won, basically. If you found a baseball fan in 78, 79 and said, who won the World Series, College World Series? If they were smart, they would just say Arizona State or USC, and they'd be about 50-50 that they'd be right. But no one cared. And where we are now, I'm not saying everyone knows, but if you're a baseball fan and you say, who won the College World Series this year, you probably know LSU. If you say, who were the best players on that team, you probably know that Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz are really good. I'm not saying we don't have a long way to go, but like you, Stephen, as you promote it, we're a long way from even where we were 5 years ago in some ways, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, there were never Twitter accounts like I remember when I was playing, when Cespedes barbecued, they were the first people to tweet about me. They tweeted a video of me, and I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. But it wasn't until my 5th year into college baseball that I was like, oh, people are tweeting videos about college baseball these days. Like, it wasn't a thing my freshman year that there was a college baseball account even that, like, you could follow, like, a main college baseball account that would just kind of pump stuff out, it felt like. And so just the amount of coverage and the amount of video access really has really been just, I can't even speak to how important it's been for the growth of the game. Just because, having a tweet where it's like, holy cow, someone just made an incredible play. That's cool. But having a video to go with that changes things. That makes people excited, and that gives people a way to, in short form, consume this game, which typically you can't really do. So those clips and, the way media has been changing to deliver these clips has been really cool to see. And just the growth has been incredible. I mean, even just in the span of one kid's playing career and I know my playing career was a little bit longer than everybody else's, but at the same time, it was a lot of change and all in the right direction, which has been really good to see.
All right, besides you, who is the best follow for, kind of offbeat college baseball / amateur baseball content?
Oh, I don't want to say this and sound like a suck up, but Peter Flaherty. Peter Flaherty, without a doubt, is one of the best guys to follow if you're looking for that college baseball content.
Love it.
If we're
Thank you for
going
that
from an
shout-out.
amateur
That's
standpoint.
our new hire this year for us.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
exactly. There you go.
sorry. JJ's
That's why he said
talking about
suck up.
baseball
JJ's
memory.
on it. Hey, Steven,
Yeah,
thanks
no,
for the time,
that's a
dude.
great hire right there. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
exactly.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This was fun, dude. Great to have you on. Enjoy the trip in the Cape.
Of course, I appreciate it. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Steven Schock. You can give him a little follow
Yeah, of course.
as well
Thank you.
at Big Donkey 47 on Twitter. And that was our Charlotte's Web former player access. Recreate the official CBD of MLB wants to send you to the 2023 World Series presented by Capital One. Follow hello_recreate on Instagram and post a photo in your favorite baseball gear using the hashtag #LivePlayRecreate along with the hashtag RC Sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. And July 31st, open to legal residents of the 50 U.S. states and D.C., age 18 plus. For rules, visit www.charlottesweb.com/World Series Recreate, the official CBD of Major League Baseball. MLB trademarks used with permission. So again, if you're looking for a little free trip to the World Series, check all of that out. More information coming soon on our social accounts as well. So what a damn day. Draft is continuing. Where are we at?
Royals
KC
pick.
just made a pick.
44.
Did they pick a pitcher? Of course they did. Because guess who needs pitching? The Royals. They
And they
do.
pick outfielders.
What?
They need a lot.
They need a lot. They need hitting. But, I mean, they've spent a lot in drafting pitching, and it has not worked out. It's been a shame for Kansas City.
That's derailed the rebuild. They designed it that they drafted the college pitchers first and followed with the hitters with the idea that the hitters, that the Bobby Witt Juniors, the guys like that would arrive and you'd have a rotation of Singer and Lynch and Coar and guys like that. And the pitchers haven't developed in most cases. I think Singer's still going to be up. Okay.
He's fine. Yeah. He's not a one.
Right. Not a one, but it works in a rotation. But the problem is because those guys haven't developed and you've spent your resources more recently, and a lot of times on bats, you're kind of stuck because they don't have enough arms and they spent a lot of resources on those arms that haven't developed. So where do you go from there?
You go back to
Last
the pitching
place.
again, I
Go to
guess.
last place.
Last place. And fighting with the Oakland A's for worst record in baseball. It's a bad
In
spot
a
to
terrible division.
be. In a terrible division. Yes.
Hey, draft lottery next year, though, they can get them 1-1.
They got a lot
Right.
of ping pong balls.
Let's
Wow.
get a couple fan questions in there, and then we will sign off. So, JJ1 from Kevin K. Let's see. Thoughts on the Braves and the Phillies picks? Do you have thoughts?
Sure. We talked about Waldrop a little bit, but to get Waldrop where they did, I'm going to sound like a homer for two teams that I have no ties to, but both of the teams got players who wouldn't necessarily have, wouldn't always expect would have fallen to their picks. Waldrop was one of the best college pitchers in the class, not the best, but one of the best. And now he's going to an organization that's shown that they can really develop pitching. And then the Phillies take Aiden Miller, and Miller was one of the more accomplished high school infielders in the class. Long track record. Was a USA Baseball star year after year after year. And we had him 20th on our board. Not a massive reach, but they got him after that. So thumbs up to both.
There you go. A little video. Aiden Miller right now.
Aiden Miller, though,
That shows him at
Wasn't
third. He plays a little bit shortstop too.
wasn't he going into the year, though, like the top high school guy, one of them?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard about Aiden Miller for a couple years now.
No, yeah, so I'm saying he's been a USA baseball stud. I'm going back to 12U. So he's one of those guys who he's been famous for a very long time.
What's a successful draft pick? In the sense of an organization, taking a guy in the third round, getting 2,100 hits, taking a guy in the first round, getting 500 at bats. What's successful?
I've run those numbers, and now I don't want to misquote them, but between the first round and the third, I think you've cut it in 2/3 the likelihood. A first rounder is 3 times more likely than the third rounder. If I remember, again, I'm too tired after this week to try to quote that I'll be so off. But I would say that if you're in the top 10 picks, that guy should, almost without fail, doesn't always work, but you can count on a guy at least having a couple of years as a regular. There are examples. Mark Appel is an example of a guy who did. Tyler Kolek. We could go through guys, Riley Pint. There are guys who didn't. But Mickey Moniak is an example. Looked like a bad pick, 1-1. He's still got a career. He's still playing for the Angels. Now you get to the 15, 20th, 25th pick. Some of those guys, the bad picks, the tough picks at that point, are sometimes guys who wash out in A-ball. Like we talk about the Royals, a couple of years before they took the Singer, Kowar, all those, they took Ash Russell. Ash Russell never made it out of low A. That was first round pick. And that's not just them. That happens. We talk about guys. I mean, there are guys who've been drafted, high school guys who were drafted in 2019, 2020, who because of injuries have barely pitched so far. Here we are in 2023, first round picks. It happens. That's one of the reasons when we talk about college pitchers and why do you teams like college pitchers more than high school? It's kind of like they've gotten through the most dangerous years as a pitcher, right? If you're a college pitcher, if you're a Paul Skeens, doesn't mean he's not going to break down, but you've already shown I can take the ball 15 times in a row and go out there and give you 7 innings, and I can be healthy enough to do it again. When you take a high school guy, an 17, 18, 19-year-old, they haven't done that yet. And sometimes they can't. And if they can't, then you find it out after paying them a lot of money, whereas the college guy the college guys who went to college and found out they couldn't, they're not getting paid.
So I want to ask you, there's 2 things I want to finish with. One is we're looking at a board right now at the last 10 years of number 1 picks. What was it, an hour and a half ago or so, David Seifert was on with us, and he told us when he worked for the Phillies, Moniak was one of those picks where the Phillies saved money early, right, and they were able to distribute it later on, right? Did he not say that? How did that go? Now, Mickey's doing okay with the Angels, but it did not pan out for the Phillies.
Bad draft.
Bad draft? But were there players after Mickey in those next 10 picks that were probably more highly regarded by most teams?
Yeah, but that is up. You look back at that draft, it was one where you look at it now and you're like, there was a lot of busts in that first round. A lot of busts in the top 10.
Great story about Mickey Moniak, my old agent when I was playing. He's from San Diego. His kids went to the same high school as Mickey Moniak.
Yeah.
They said, they went home, Dad, you got to get this guy. He's going to be great. He's like, first 1-1.
He said no?
Didn't even try and get him. Didn't try and get him.
Wow.
Okay, that top 10. This is an example of they don't all work in the top 10. Mickey Moniak 1.
Okay.
Nick Senzel 2. Ian Anderson 3. Was good, then got hurt.
Yep.
I had a dinger. 2 dingers off.
2 dingers off Ian. Helped the Braves win a World Series, though.
Yes.
He's had problems since, but he was good that one time. But I agree. Okay, so far we're not doing well.
Riley Pint 4.
Who?
Corey Ray 5.
Corey Ray.
AJ Puck 6. Braxton Garrett 7. Cal Quantrill 8. No hitter throwing Matt Manning 9.
Doesn't count.
Zach Collins 10. That's not a great top 10.
That's a tough draft.
Counts
You're right.
for our
That's a tough draft.
That's the thing about the draft. That's the crazy thing about this is we won't know which teams did really well on this. We'll know which teams did really well before too long, but we won't know who completely blew it 6-7 years from now. 2017 draft, top 5 picks. What do we know about Hunter Green? He looks good, he looks impressive, but we don't yet know what Hunter Green's going to be, right?
Yeah, but he's a big league pitcher.
Right. I'm not saying he's a bust. No,
We don't know where he is in a rotation, but he's a big league pitcher.
right. But we don't really know fully what Kyle Wright is. That's a college pitcher from Vandy from the
20 game winner.
21 wins.
Right. And I'm saying he's been good, but is he an ace or is he more of a middle?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but you
He
can't
won a World
there's-
Series. He helped them win a World Series.
He did.
Like Ian Anderson, he's a win.
Yeah,
Because he
absolutely.
helped them win a World
Absolutely. And Kyle
That's a
Wright's a
win.
win.
Oh, that's a big. Right now, that is
Okay,
definitely.
Royce-
it's always
Royce
a win.
Lewis.
They're not the same without Ian Anderson that year, right?
Royce Lewis, number 1 pick in the 2017 draft. I like him still, but injuries mean we're still waiting for Royce Lewis to show us what he can do.
Why'd
And
they-
it's 2023, and he was drafted in 17.
Why'd
Just
they
an
put him in the
example of how it takes a long time.
Why'd they put him in the outfield?
I don't think they'll do that again.
No, right. Injuries have held him back. It's actually been good when he's been in the field.
Yep.
Twins have had problems with a few players like that. Obviously, Buxton too. Okay, so last topic. How do we get more Ellie De La Cruz-like talent into the big leagues? Because I know it's a big topic on your mind. What?
He loves Ellie, by the way.
I
Well,
love Ellie.
To be fair,
He loves Ellie.
when I was calling for him to get called up, I promoted him really hard. He's waiting to erupt. These guys weren't as excited. True or false? You were not as excited as me for the
No.
Ellie De La Cruz call. Just say
Nobody
true or
could
false,
be
and
as
then you can talk.
excited.
No,
What?
Nobody could be as excited as you.
Not true. Todd.
Todd Frazier
Todd
was
just
excited.
wanted
He
his
bought
value of his
baseball
card.
cards of his, rookie
True.
cards. That was smart. I don't know his name, but the Reds broadcaster was pretty excited about it. He's done a nice job with the calls. He's like, best thing since pistachios. But seriously, this is an important topic. Ellie De La Cruz, especially watching him this weekend, still third and then still home on one play. You're watching him. I was showing my dad the clip, and he's like, oh, my God, imagine what that dude would do in the NFL. I'm like, yeah, that's the problem. In America, NFL, NBA, if you're 6'7", and you move like that, you are probably in one of those 2 leagues because they're probably sexier and you can make money quicker. Kyler Murray was a big story back when he was picked by the A's, ends up going QB route in the NFL. You can dispute how he's done in the league, but he's made a shitload of money. So how do we get more Ellie in MLB?
I don't have a good answer to that, but it's not just Ellie. O'Neal Cruz doesn't play baseball if he comes up through. Is Shohei Ohtani the best athlete? Came up in Japan
Yes.
and was allowed to develop as a 2-way player.
Have you ever seen Shohei Ohtani in person?
Oh.
He's 6'5".
He's huge.
Takes 2 steps. He's the fastest dude. He's the best athlete on the field. 99.9% of the time he's on the
I have the answer. If you see an incredible athlete,
Then why'd
you have
you ask the question?
I'm putting in it's a BS answer.
He's asking questions.
You have to
and
get
answering.
him.
Yeah.
You have to get that player out of the country. Be like, yo, go to the Dominican Republic where baseball rules. If he's in the country, they're going to look at him and be like, dude, you want to be the next LeBron? You want to be the next, well, if you're 6'7", you're probably a tight end. But Calvin
Okay.
Johnson, you want to be Jimmy Graham?
Calvin Johnson was a first-round talent as a baseball player.
Calvin Johnson was?
We wrote him up when he was in high school. I've talked to scouts who are like, okay, this year, Deuce Robinson's a 5-star tight end. He's also a baseball player, likes baseball. I find it unlikely that he's going to just go baseball. 5-star tight end, he's going to go to USC. He might play both sports. It's going to be hard for him to end up playing. The only reason he'll probably end up is if he really, really, really loves baseball or if it doesn't work out in football. Deshaun Jackson was a great high school baseball player. There's a lot of these guys who are great high school baseball players, but you can get paid a lot more quickly, and the path to it, playing in the SEC, playing in the Big Ten for college is a lot more fun than football.
True.
I'm
Adam
just
Dunn.
saying we should be thinking about a
Joe
way
Borchard,
to get players like that
quarterback.
enticed to be in the big leagues. There's got to be a way.
Jeff Samardzija.
NIL.
What?
NIL.
Yeah, pay them. Pay them early. I don't know how you exactly do that, but you got to figure out a way.
Joe Mauer. That's the success story that way.
Right, because Joe Mauer was
That's
a
what
one
job,
one, right?
It's a touchy subject. He took his job. It's a touchy subject. We don't bring it up on this.
On that note, let's sign off.
Are we slapping hands?
I don't think we're slapping hands, but we are doing Kratz hats if it's
real?
available. Do you want
This
to?
hat has been so tight. I don't know if I can get it off my head. No.
That's a good Kratz hat.
I figured I'd wear it for America. Rail Riders, Scranton Rail Riders. I didn't know I had another one. Obviously, the International League adds a little extra flair. I love the July 4th, even though we missed it by like 6 days. I've been wearing it for a while.
Is Kratz out
And
of-
you guys were both at the high school All-American game. I didn't mention that earlier, but wanted to throw that in there. You guys had a good time, right?
Great time.
We sent you guys there so you could prepare for next year's draft. Are you
Dude, do you
prepared?
know how good of a pitching coach I was? Kratz sucked as a third base coach. Only one run.
Okay, they got one run. Did you throw BP?
They wouldn't let me.
Did you offer?
No. I'm a pitching coach.
Okay.
He was a pitching coach. He was the most bougie pitching coach, too, because it was sunny, and he had a towel around his neck, and he saw Adrian Beltre. It was the first time I ever saw him speak Spanish. He was like, "Hey, ¿qué pasó, papi?"
You did? You
Yeah,
spoke Spanish?
first Spanish I've ever seen him speak.
You've never done it on this show.
I habla.
Okay.
I just don't like to show off.
Good news. We have many, many hours left of foul territory taking over Seattle. So we'll get AJ to speak a little more Spanish coming up. So, but yeah, merch available, foul territory shop.com. That's what the hat looks like. This is what the shirt looks like. There is a wristband on my wrist too. You probably can't see it, but you can see
I
it
don't
on the
even have one of
website.
those. You have
I
one of those?
didn't know that. I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah, how do I get one of those?
That we have these?
Oh, neato, gang.
JJ
Like it.
needs one.
What, a wristband? Yeah. Look them up. We got you. Hey, special thanks, JJ. Thank you for joining us today for these last
Thank you
few
guys
hours.
for having me.
Really appreciate it. It was fun to kick around some topics unfiltered. Make sure you check out all of Baseball America's content covering the draft the next couple days, too. There is a lot more to go with the draft, and we're not covering the rest of it. They are. So check out their coverage, please.
BaseballAmerica.com will be through 616 or so picks.
And the site is fully renovated. You just unveiled
Fully.
the new website. When was the first day? Friday.
Friday a week ago. I know because I think that's the last time that I got any sleep.
Hey, can we get the free login?
Gotta hook you up.
Oh, let's go.
Otherwise, he was going over the balcony.
And lastly, thank you to the MLB PA for hosting us for the next few days. Thank you to the MLB Players House. We are here. We're going to enjoy the rest of the festivities here for the rest of the night, and then we will be on Monday from around 1 to 4 Eastern time. We'll talk home run derby. We'll bring on guests.
Hold on, wait.
What?
The White Sox
I
are
can
picking.
never get through a promo without AJ.
The White Sox are picking.
Okay.
Raul Ibanez is picking.
No, I don't know who he is.
Grant Taylor. They're playing the music. Give us your analysis on Grant Taylor.
Great right-handed pitcher, tall guy, good slider.
LSU. You didn't see him
Late
in the
life.
College World Series?
Late life.
Late
Late
life.
He's got late life.
Tomorrow, a lot of pitchability lefties will be taken at some point, okay? And I won't be announcing it. We're getting out of here. Monday and Tuesday, 1 to 4 Eastern, and also Tuesday night, watch the All-Star Game with us on Foul Territory's YouTube channel. Thanks, fam. We'll see you on Monday.